Gotcha.
Here we go. We are going live in like 5 seconds.
Bowie knife.
Bowie knife. I was just gonna say that. Oh, just gonna say
Bowie knife.
It was literally coming out of my mouth.
Man, why you got Nutrabio?
All right. We're up. That's just like our cover photo.
Oh, okay.
All right, we are live. Justin, you want to introduce today?
Do I want to introduce? Oh, man. Put me on the spot. See, I could go on forever. Like, this is a very special edition for all of us. We're all such good friends already, but we get to finally have Chris Waldrum on the Supplement Industry Roundtable. Chris, most people are familiar with Chris. You know, by now we've done so much content together. We have so much fun together. But Chris, it is my honor, my pleasure to welcome you to the Supplement Industry Roundtable, my friend.
Dude, thank you guys so much. Long time coming, but it couldn't come any sooner because you've had some great guests before me, and I'm definitely humbled to be coming after such established figures in the industry. So thank you, Jacob, Ben, and the most handsome Mr. Hall in the world for having this humble individual Rambo ripoff MFer on your podcast. I'm stoked today, dude.
Honestly, man, I think you look better than the original Rambo. I just want to say,
Yes.
I said it 100 times. He did Rambo better than Rambo did.
Yep.
Dude, it's those pecs, those 80s pecs, bro. They're pec dominant. It's just like Arnold. You know, he's 100% pec.
Pecs just hit different in the 80s, man. That's what it does.
I swear, man.
So did Jorts,
yeah.
Let's be honest.
Right?
Yeah,
You're bringing him back.
Listen, I'm trying, dude. I'm trying.
Well,
But,
Justin's bringing the pecs back, so you're bringing the jorts back. I mean,
I sent some music video when we get back together.
I think I'm down.
I'm bringing pecs back. Yeah. Okay. All right, crickets. Never mind. All right, let's continue with the cast anyway.
Right? We spent too much time together.
I know. It's like what do we want to talk about, guys? What's so
the one thing that I wanted to bring up, which I think is you guys actually touched on it before we started streaming. My favorite thing about Chris is that he is simultaneously concerned about artificial sweeteners and affecting our endocrine systems, but also poured 18 ounces of vodka for himself before this. Like,
14.
like I love the balance.
It's all about balance.
I love it. I love it so much. Like there's like he on one hand cares about the things he puts in his system, and on the second hand, when we got back to Jacob's house after that night at the bar, he had like 40 ounces ready for us. You know, like there's an incredible balance here. I love it.
Dude, that just means that I'm gonna be older, brain dead as fuck, but also be alpha as fuck. Okay, so lots of testosterone, low brain cell count, that equals out in the middle, man. So,
Yeah, you don't want to be too far to one side. It's like, I think most people know that Chris and I, we spend time together every week doing our happy hour lives, and there's a lot more. See, like a lot of times when we have people on here, we go right into, what's your background, what's the stories, but I think like with someone like Chris, there's just, all the things that we talk about that are so much more impactful sometimes than just the story behind it. It's like, I know, where do you even begin with Chris Waldrum and all this crazy journey? Actually, one question I wanted to ask you was, so last year, as we all know, right, Inspired was Stacked Brand of the Year for good
Brand of the year.
For good reason, though. So it's something that you and I have talked a lot about. And this is kind of like a on the spot kind of question, but a lot of people sort of followed along that journey. What was like that year? Because so much changed, I feel like, with you, not only like the brand, but like personally. What was like last year, 2019, like for you in general? It just seems like so many things sort of hit their stride all at the same time.
yeah, man. So none of that was really planned. And great question that you posed there. I think we were able to really grow on a fundamental level as individuals, and that translated to what we brought as the company. So prior to that, and a lot of people know me just for being obviously like overly outspoken to the point of my demise kind of thing. And in 2019, I did the complete opposite. I didn't really talk to anybody. I didn't even really talk to Shane too much too. We just stuck to our path. I kept my head down, and I contributed that to a lot of things, obviously with me getting older, more mature, but also having like a daughter. And my priorities have changed. Now my focus is on being the best father I can for Dakota and the best husband I can be for Stephanie, and not bickering with people on social media, on troll accounts that have absolutely no directive to my life. They don't impact my life at all. So once I took my eyes off of what everybody else thought, I did what I truly wanted to do. And what I want to do is benefit and inspire people. I mean, it's, you know, it's a cliche sounding name now, but that's truly why I started the company. So when I focused on what my goals were and what I wanted to accomplish for other individuals and stop caring what these other people were talking about throughout the industry, because we're in an industry of bickering little pussies, then you start to really accomplish shit. So it was just that, dude. I didn't even think about brand of the year. Previous years, that's all I wanted. All I wanted was a trophy. And all I did in life was work towards a trophy. And if your only goal is to get to some trophy or some accomplishment, then you don't enjoy the path whatsoever at all. And I enjoyed the path tremendously, all the little steps that got me there. And at the end of the year, it was enough to be able to pull ahead of some other like great companies that were in there as well too, and distinguish ourselves apart from other individuals. So yeah, man, it was a philosophical change mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, so that was like, right. So everyone just sort of stop and pause and listen to that, right? So you tried, right? You tried to, you know, win the award. You're always trying. And then when you stopped trying and got back to what you were doing, that's when, you know, you really hit your stride, which was really, I think that's a pretty awesome message. I know Chris is always full of good uplifting messages. So that's one right off the bat, man. I really like it.
That's going on a shirt for me. Honestly.
Chris was so quiet last year that after he won the award, I then realized all the things he had done for the year. Like I remember I texted Chris, like, I didn't realize this. I'm sorry. Like, you did so much stuff in silence, and it really is important. Actually, Justin and I were just talking about this today. Like, so many companies focus on what everyone else is doing because they want to compete. They don't focus enough on themselves and what their actual mission is anymore. Yep. It's always like a pissing contest online. Everyone wants to be the Stack 3D brand of the year, maybe Price brand of the year. I don't know, but everyone wants to compete with everyone else. No one is doing anything original anymore.
Right.
And that was Inspired Greens, the most original product of 2019.
Dude, thank you, man. When it becomes like a pissing match, like nobody wins. And me and Ben talk about this all the time. Me and you, Ben, talk about it all the time. Anybody could make a $20 cost of goods product and call it the most superior product on the market. They can make a $30 cost of goods on the market. It's really the people that take innovation from like fundamental levels that have always been there, but nobody looks at it because they're only trying to make that next big pre-workout with the obnoxious amount of citrulline malate to make people shit their brains out and 5 billion grams of caffeine to get you stimulated. And dude, I take it because, well, my perspective is we're driven this way because we're a male-dominant industry that has hyper-exaggerated egos. A lot of people have lower self-esteem, so they have to overinflate their ego to overcompensate for the low self-esteem. And having a social media age and having lower manufacturing minimum order quantities, it's allowing everybody to get into it, which is a good and a bad thing. It's good because it's evening the playing field, but it's bad because a lot of people that should never be in the industry are now entering the industry.
So, right, one thing you just hit on there that is really important too is it's not you when you talk about how the industry is, you know, people getting into it like that and they have false, and it's a lot of like pissing contests. You're not saying that like from like a soapbox going, you know, you're like, I was there and I realized how much of a waste of time it was. So now, which is kind of interesting, you branched out from just doing Inspired. You also help other brands. And it's like to be able to sort of talk to them about that experience for you, because you've already kind of learned the ways not to do things, right? So you can kind of pass that along to now other people and hopefully speed up their process, maybe make their process a little bit easier. And I know that's something that you're really just kind of getting into, but it's something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, man, it's the exact same thing that you other three do. You dedicate yourself, you know, service to others. And in an industry where you have, you know, I guess competitors around you, you could still really help them thrive and grow while you can mutually benefit yourself. And I've done that on a lot of different levels, and it's really helped me diversify my revenue stream. And at the same time, it's extremely fulfilling to me. And again, that's why does TNS do well? Because Jacob gives himself to other people. You know, why is Ben doing well? Because he does the exact same thing too. So I think if we really take a step back and we're not just solely focused on our own individuality, our own success, but helping other people out too, there is a certain level of synergy. I don't think everybody could win because you're going to have a competitive marketplace for, you know, few are going to succeed, many are going to fucking fail. But that doesn't mean that you have to be completely cutthroat in every situation you go into with a knife behind your back. which is just, unfortunate how it is in a lot of these relationships.
A Bowie knife.
Bowie knife behind your back.
No, I think this podcast
Yeah.
is a perfect example of what you just said. Like, Jacob is a content creator, so it's all three of us like do something very similar. Could we be have animosity between us and not want to work together? Absolutely, but instead we put our minds together and created something that the three of us could do together. That's even better because the three of us are putting things aside. Not one of us could have probably done this on our own. It's the three of our networks put together, and that's extremely fulfilling, at least for me. I know I've been looking for a reason to work with Justin for a while. So absolutely. It feels so good,
Yeah. No, I feel like all of us are in we're not direct competition regarding content or our business models or anything like that, but we're in that happy medium to where we can integrate directly with each other without harming the other's business. And I think that's an amazing thing. We can all grow together in our own routes, but also do similar things, if that makes sense.
What's the difference between me being like, God, Jacob's content is so good, I could do better, or being like messaging you and be like, Jacob, I fucking love the way you make content.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
But I think there's like a lot of people could sit back and be like, fuck that guy. He makes such good content. I'm gonna make better stuff. But instead I'm like, I am inspired by that to do something. It's not the same, right?
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, that is kind of like a new, and that's one thing that Chris, you and I talk about on happy hours all the time is, kind of trying to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to things, but it's hard you can't be too innovative or people don't get it. So like, that's even like this kind of thing where the industry was very very competitive. It still is obviously, but you're kind of being a little bit, of a trendsetter where you're like, no, how about we pool our resources together? We can make a better, industry in general. The strength of the long-term health of the industry is sort of, I think, what all of us sort of talk about, and each can get their own piece of things, especially you get to do it by helping people at the same time. So you're kind of ahead of the curve, when it comes to that too. You're just kind of seeing it before you're like, okay, I think people are sort of ready for this. You're kind of listening to people, sort of gauging the, we talk a lot about social climates and things like that, but it's something that you've always had like your finger on the pulse of.
Yeah, man, it's I think the majority of this industry's history has only been based around a 2-hour period when people were at the gym and just trying to look as good as you can in that 2-hour period, feel as driven as you can, and nobody looked at the exterior. What happens in the exterior world? What are you going to do like out there? Do you feel well? Do you have energy? Are you motivated? In all aspects, there's sleep, recovery, sustenance of what you're eating. So when we started looking at that, it's like, obviously you could only do so many pre-workouts, so many pump products, so many quote unquote like test boosters, fat burners. And those were like the hot items that got people in because there's some sort of like immediate, impact from the stimulant that you take inside of it. And nobody really focused on the outside. What do you do outside the gym in your external life and whatnot? But the health and wellness industry did, like a lot of the weeds and seeds, the whole foods, they did. And I just wondered how I could merge over to something like that would have more survivability when you have some sort of volatile market, just like we're in right now. The gyms are closed. What the fuck are you going to do if you rely on a pre-workout? When we started out, 60% of our sales was devastated, and now it's so balanced across the board. If anything gets hit, we are not just surviving, but we're thriving. So it's really cool to see that people are having a different perspective outside of the gym, and really like for overall health, like there's organ support formulas, digestive support, microbiome support and whatnot like that, instead of just overstimulating your systems and whatnot. So.
Well, like something I've never asked you, but I just kind of always just maybe thought this was the answer, but I feel like your greens product, that's very much you. And I think that that is just one of those types of products that comes from a brand that you're like, that is like the embodiment of the person behind the brand. So I was just kind of curious because I love it. These guys, I know we've got flavored ones that are amazing now too. You're coming out with flavors, which they're awesome.
I want them yesterday, by the way. Sorry.
It's 100% right. But I just was kind of curious because, the greens category has been something I bashed from the very beginning. And now all of a sudden I said, here's Chris Waldrum making like a cool greens product, but it's not just a greens product, right? It's so much more than that. So I was just kind of curious, like how that product kind of came about. It's so popular and people love it so much. It's like, how did that brainchild sort of, work its way through what you got going on up there?
Yeah. So first off, Ben, yours is already on the way. You probably got another.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything.
I just love the energy is all.
I was like,
Just
yes.
decline real quick. Man, so when I first formulated Devastate back in 2014, this was back before there was some sort of like mix of a nootropic with the energy and then endurance and then pump. They were just like one trick ponies. So they had all their eggs in one basket. And it wasn't really like a diversified formula. So when I came out with the first Devastate, my whole concept was like, okay, let's create like a couple different categories or subcategories within a formula that really offers the whole overall impact, and has some sort of level of synergy from, lactic acid buffering, nitric oxide, boosting your cognitive ability or focus inside the gym, and then energy. So I took the same premise of that, which I kind of do with everything, and then applied it to greens. Like, okay, we can have the dopest greens formula that has a ton of wheatgrass, kale, broccoli, etc. That's cool. We could have something that's a little bit of a mix, but the other part of the mix is pixie dust. That's kind of interesting too. So how could we have something that's extremely balanced and at the same time have, efficacious dosages or something that you're at least going to anecdotally like feel and make it super interesting. So whenever I put together formulas, and I know you guys are the exact same way too, and for anybody listening, so whenever you throw together a formula, you could spend a couple hours online and be somewhat of a educated formulator. If you just go on all the published medicals, if you go on Examine or a myriad of other sites, but it's difficult to make something that looks cool to the individual that's going to be consuming it and look cool to other like enthusiasts like we are. So I always look at when I put together a supplement fact panel is like painting a picture or putting together some sort of a sculpture and having some sort of like balance, some interesting or unique aspects to that. So when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's cool. Then you go down there, it's like, wow, that's interesting. You get down to the bottom, you're like, okay, fuck, that's really unique. That's super fucking cool. I'm going to buy it. And I do that like with everything. And that's what I think this new age is kind of getting to, which I'm super stoked that people are finally progressing past just putting all their eggs in like, a citrulline or whatever it may be, and making a formula that offers a unique experience on paper, but also in, real life and whatnot, transferable in real life.
That's actually, so you were talking about like the process of reading down a supplement facts panel. That's actually like when I go through any inspired product, like I never get to a part I'm like, okay. Like there's always like with a lot of companies, there's like okay, I see what they did here. Like this is how they made it cheap. But like Inspired, you're like, oh, cool, okay. Like every single line, you're like, all right, I'm with it.
Yeah, somebody asked me to break down Devastation The Union today, and it had been just a few weeks since I had looked at the panel before, and I was like, okay, well, when you go in and actually talk about it, and I talked about it like forever today because I kept going. I was like, oh yeah, so then this and this work together, and then if you put this here and this goes here, and I just kept going on. I was like, yeah, this is pretty fucking cool, right? So no wonder we like it so much.
Thank you, dude. What's Jacob? What are you about to say? Or was that a yawn?
That was it was not a yawn, and it was kind of a yawn. It was like a semi yawn. It wasn't out of boredom.
Like semi yawn.
I'm still thinking about the lemon grove that I had this morning, and I can't get my mind off of it, but I was listening.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm stoked on the greens, man. Like the whole objective that we want to do on this one is pull it away from people correlating it to greens, because greens are great and everybody takes it like, a fish oil or a multivitamin. They don't look forward to it. They just do it as a Band-Aid to be able to fill in other aspects of their lives. Yes, okay, that's great if you don't eat greens, but I wanted to make something where people are like really excited to have, and the new ones, like it had to have knockout flavoring. So when you get home as a post-workout or people that don't want any stimulants, you could legitimately take this pre-workout because it has adaptogens, there's liamine, some nootropic stuff inside of there, and be stoked to drink it. Like I want Inspired to have the first greens where you have that in a freaking cooler, or whatever, accusing like sipping on that shit because it's really enjoyable. And a lot of people are like either too focused on the formula, which is great. You have to offer something good for the client, or the flavor, and their formula is compromised from the flavor. We were just like, okay, however many months this takes, however much it costs to be able to get the bitter maskers or whatever blocking agents, and then the flavoring system on point, let's just do it, whatever it takes. And finally, like, I wasn't confident until I got, Justin, now Jacob, and Ben's going to be the third one to get it. But you guys may be super confident. So thank you guys for trying that. Yeah. Seriously, that means a lot.
They were all awesome. I think it was, so there was Malibu Breeze that was great. The Lemon Grove was awesome. And what was
was it Island?
Island vibes.
Island vibes.
Yeah.
You know what? Like that might even have been my favorite one, to be honest with you. I think they're all great.
Yeah, I enjoyed every single one of them, and I love that even your unflavored greens almost have a creamy like aftertaste. Like
the unflavored ones were almost chocolate to me. Like it was like really like
yeah.
It was still I don't like greens drinks. I've tried a lot. I just don't get with it. But it was like almost like I don't want to say dirt because that sounds bad, but it was like an earthy chocolate, which was just really like creamy and tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I told people I would mix it with the inspired vanilla protein. It was awesome. I love that combination. The greens plus the vanilla protein is so good.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Seriously, I know you're all bombarded with a lot of requests, and not even requests, like demands these days, because people have absolutely no respect or dignity. So they just say, "Hey, review this." So the fact that you guys did that, man, I appreciate it, because I know you guys have very little time. So it's really valuable to me that you did that. It means a lot.
We got time for our friends.
You're kind of my friend, dude. I was gonna say,
Right?
don't you dare thank me.
You should have seen, like, if you on my stories today, somebody mentioned Devastation The Union, and I totally blanked out on what I was talking about, because I was like, wait a minute, do you have it? Because I don't have it. And I was so upset that somebody else had it before I did. I was like, how? I felt so heartbroken. Wasn't even paying attention. It wasn't even the question. I just got totally lost. So anything inspired. So I guess that's a good way, maybe a good segue, because Devastation The Union is kind of it's a pretty aggressive.
I love
product. Like, not just the formula. I mean, the formula is aggressive, and you're taking some chances with the formula, but the packaging and the vibe and the whole, it's just like kind of, I don't want to say it's like a couple like middle fingers up like to everybody. It's kind of like you're just, just like, look, fuck you, this is what we can do, kind of thing.
Man, so that kind of was contrived when Landon decided to join Inspired, because we were going back and forth. Okay, if Landon comes on the company, like, what are you going to do? What's your role? I don't like to have redundancies. I don't like to have dead weight. And I know a lot of companies die from gluttony of having too many employees thinking that they're all doing something. Nobody's being any kind of productive, and it's just a waste. So once we finally came to the conclusion that, you're going to be extremely beneficial, how do we make something as like, honoring him coming into the company and showing, the significance of somebody who is so established, and like Landon's he's a high level intellect, man, not just an intellect, but he's extremely creative too. And usually those don't mix together. Usually there's one, you're book smart or street smart, but he kind of has both of them. So it's just a question, okay, like, what do we do? How do we commemorate this kind of introduction into this, new life? I love V for Vendetta. I think that movie from the Wachowskis is just one of the dopest movies ever. And it just so happens that his like insignia is the Guy Fawkes mask. So I was like, dude, holy shit, man. I've been wanting to do another BBD type product where there's no like verbiage, no lettering on the front. There's just like an image. And when people see that image, boom, they identify with it. And they don't have to say like, hey, super hardcore. There's nothing on that pre-workout that says it's hardcore. There's nothing that says it's a huge pump product or anything, that it tastes good, nothing at all. It was just like, how do we do this from an art and design aspect to make something special? So we went into it, and it was just like, dude, let's make the Guy Fawkes mask on the front. I've always wanted to do like a brick texture, so it looked like, and with the renderings, everything that you do with Photoshop, it's insane. And we do all this in-house, which is, it's so cool, because the creative flow is just like after another, kind of like Jacob putting out 5-star material, making us all feel like dirtbags because we'll never get there. Jacob.
Thank you, man.
And it was, man, so this was, you could only recreate the wheel, reinvent the wheel so many times. And there's so many good pre-workouts out there. So how are we going to put out another Devastate? And people go like, yeah, that's another Devastate, which I wouldn't hate them if they did, because we put out so many Devastates since, our flagship White Cut. So this one, we wanted to have like a big bang with the formula, and we have like Zoom XR. We have a really, really cool list of ingredients in there without alluding to it too much. But the other way of differentiating it was with design, dude. How do you make your product cool with design that hasn't been done before? So we looked at it from a much more like urban perspective, from an artsy perspective that me and him are into, and how do we have some sort of convergence of that? And man, when I was working with the label manufacturer, they're like, dude, I've never seen this much kind of detail ever. Like, there's like 5 varnishes on there. So when you get it, I want people to just hold it and look at it for like an hour and be like, oh, look at that. Cause there's so many like hidden gems in there that we really spent a lot of time on. And it was just, man, yeah. So don't reinvent the wheel.
Chris, I'm looking at the labels right now. Like the ones you sent me, I can't stop watching them. One of them is my desktop background because I have 3 desktop like monitors here. So that's how much detail there is. Like I look at it every time I open up my computer. So
Dude, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I'm stoked for people just to get it in their hands, to get that experience, because you can only get so much of experience from your sensory effect. You could only get people so stimulated. You can only get so much of an endurance aspect, so much of a palatability through flavor. So how do you bring that fourth realm to our dimension? And that really is like the label through the textures, the different varnishes, and then the different elements with the color contrast and whatnot. So this was like, dude, if you're gonna go big, like let's go as big as fucking possible and really develop this out.
Yeah,
I know that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say that I know that the labeling is really important and special because even Justin's talking about it, and Justin doesn't talk about marketing. That's how I know it's impressive. Like I'm a sucker for really cool marketing and stuff, but like I know when Justin brings it up, impactful.
Yeah, like both you guys know, a lot of people either put everything into marketing and are disingenuous to the client because they just have a big bankroll, but the formula is dog shit. And unfortunately, the companies that are making the most these days have dog shit formulas. People that have the most stacked formula, like they're broke as a joke. I mean, they might be doing well, but you're not doing well. So how do you have that? How do you merge both of those realms together? That's what's so cool, man. I'm getting to work with other companies that are pretty successful, but now we're taking their like design aspect and marketing to a whole nother level. So yeah, you have the most epic formulas. You're going to broaden your audience and give a better like experience to the consumer.
Well, I think one thing you've been talking about that's a huge point, especially in this comes with experience and stuff, I'm sure too, is you were talking about how so supplement companies basically focusing on that 2-hour window pre-workout and then maybe some protein post-workout, and then maybe we'll throw a shitty multivitamin at you or something like that. But you started to get into the whole, well, you're my customer, I want you on my team. So that means you're my customer for 24 hours out of your day kind of thing. So let's start to attack. But then like what you were just talking about, let's make you excited about that, because it's like, we don't want to have supplements be like, like medications where people feel like, okay, I have to take this, I have to take this pill, I have to do this. You want people to be, you want to elicit excitement to like, I want to be excited to drink my greens, in the morning. I want to like, I mentioned last year when you came out with the multivitamin, I was like, okay, so finally someone came out with a cool multivitamin. Of course it was Chris, right? Because you're like, okay, I want to make you excited to take a multivitamin, not because, oh, I feel like I have to because my doctor told me. So it's just cool to see, man. It's cool to see the whole, kind of vibe come together.
Dude, thanks, man. We have a couple of the launches that we haven't announced this year, but we're saving a lot of our, we have some really big launches that are going to be 2021, but they're going to be all like daily additions, daily like routine regime additions that you need to take or you should take to benefit your life, and not have it like optional, like a testosterone booster. That's completely optional. Pre-workout, completely optional. Fat burner, etc. But these are things where it's like, man, I hate to say lifestyle, but healthy lifestyle, kind of that encapsulated in some sort of like daily regime that you could incorporate to your life. That's going to be like 2021. 2020 was still like making sports nutrition, which I love sports nutrition, but I want to pull out of that and do, I don't know, more like, it sounds, a little girly, but more like heartfelt stuff where I'm like, man, this is going to benefit people on a different level and really help them like feel better and thrive.
I like that a lot. I mean, you're basically saying that you want to enrich your customers' lives better. Like the people that are part of your community, you want to take that responsibility on and just help them live a better life, which will mean a lot for a lot of people. I kind of get nervous about those types of messages because when I hear a lot of CEOs from companies say that kind of stuff, I'm like, okay. Yeah, like for a small monthly price of $120, you can be on all of these, right? But when it comes from the right person, obviously, it feels good to hear that.
Dude, well, you made like a really good point, and Justin too. A new customer comes to you, hey man, I want to build a brand. Like, okay, what's your identity? What do you mean, what's my identity? Like, what are you going to bring that's unique? Well, I'm going to have the most stacked, most transparent, most this and that. You're like, listen, like I don't want to discredit you or dishearten you, but everybody that comes to me says the exact, and same thing with me, case in point, says the exact same stuff. Why did you get into this? Why did you get into this, dude? And it's typically only because it's easily accessible and your ego's pushing you into like being able to create something to have some sort of relevancy in your life. And that's the last reason that you should get into it. Yeah, get into it for capitalist means. You got to make money, provide for your family, have a good life. But you're going to have other like fundamental levels that you need to identify that differentiate yourself besides having a $20, $30, whatever it may be, cost of goods product.
So
really,
I was going to say a good segue would be, well, Ben, because I want to switch gears. So Ben, if you're
let me just,
on topic.
on the last thing part of that, when I help other companies with, directions for formulations and stuff, they're like, I want you to make the best pre-workout. I'm like, well, what do you, I'm sorry, Justin, I know that's triggering. I know you want the best, but like what do you want out of this product? Like, I just want it to be the best pre-workout possible. I'm like, yeah, but like, what kind of reaction do you want to get from this product? Like pre-workout doesn't even really mean anything specifically about what ingredients. Like, what do you want your fat burner to do specifically? Like, we need to know a little bit more. And there's no direction really these days. They're just like, I just want to put everything in it possible. No one understands like the finer points of like exactly how you describe getting into the greens category, like how you wanted it to be a little bit different than just your normal green vibrance. So, but Justin, wherever you want to see the conversation, please do.
Oh, so you were mentioning, we talked to a lot of people that are just trying to get in, and you hear that same story. So if we could rewind the clock, you were at Diamondize. You also worked in retail, right? But then did you go from Diamondize straight into Inspired? I was just kind of curious, like, where was that sort of moment for you where you're like, you know what, man, I can do this. Like, I want to start my own thing. Like, you had that, aha moment, or that moment that just kind of kicked yourself in the ass and like, let's do it. I just want to go for it.
Yeah, man, I think it's certain people are innately empowered by these kind of like mindsets, and some people aren't. You're always going to need to have a ditch digger. Somebody's always going to have to ditch dig or make, pizza crust until robots replace us all, which is coming real soon. So fucking watch out.
Here we go.
I think you guys are already endowed with this kind of, mentality. And that is never being truly content with where you are. Now, you could be content with your surroundings of your life, individuals in your life. That's not what I'm talking about. But whatever equates to progress to you, like, you cannot be content, because contentment on a certain level, not in your outside life, because you got to be content with people that you love, but at a business standpoint, contentment leads to complacency, and complacency is the killer of all progress. So I've never been content with where I've been appreciative, because there's a lot of people that played that role in my life to get me to these nests, the booster kind of people, I call them, that the only reason I am here is because there are a very few amount of people, like count on my hands, I could say, dude, one guy, Jerry, the reason I'm here is because of you. Chris, the reason I'm here is because of you, literally because they played that fundamental role for me to get to retail to Diamondize to Inspired right now. But I've never had that mindset. Like, I've always done really good at my jobs. I've always gotten raises. I've always been like that star employee, but I've always wanted more. And if you like recognize that human beings, like, we're all capable of everything, dude. We're our own God self. If you're religious or you're not, you could create your own reality depending on how enthusiastic, driven, and determined you are. That is me. So with Inspired, and then I love Inspired, and I started Anastasis. So I was like, damn, let's do another company, Anastasis. And now it's on some other level that is much more fulfilling to me, which is like design, manufacturing, building. That's just the greatest thing in the world. But it's just because, I was born that way, man. And you and I talked on the last podcast of kind of like our childhood, but that is what empowered me and kind of instilled in me this mindset of wherever I am, if I'm not moving, I start feeling lazy, complacent. And I'm like, Chris, you're being a piece of shit. Get the fuck up. Like, let's do something. And you three are the exact same way. So yeah, it was, I love Diamondize, but it built a foundation and a Rolodex of knowledge that I was able to utilize to take to something even bigger and greater. And there are no employees that are going to be there indefinitely, at least not on the sales aspect. Everybody is just a temporary little fluff until they're cut out. And I knew that. When I got in there, I excelled, and they wanted to move me to VP. They wanted to move me to Dallas over people that had been there for a decade, just because I was like, fuck, what do I got to do to win? What do I got to do to win? And I got that opportunity, man. They gave me a raise that I wanted. They gave me everything that I wanted. And I had to have the ability to be free and create at my will without somebody else dictating that.
That's awesome. Well, there was one thing that I don't want to forget that you just said that you kind of pointed out that I want to touch on just real quick. Because we talked to a lot of people that want to start businesses. We all, we started your own thing. We all have our own businesses. And there's a secret about starting your own business that a lot of people don't understand, is that we all have no idea, like, really what we're doing. It's a lot of people go, I'm scared to start this business because I don't know, like, I'm not an expert in that yet. I don't know how to do this. But like, just like what Chris, like, you're literally, as we're hearing Chris tell his story, you're hearing his evolution as a person, but he's just changing up like how he's running his business. And it's like, Jacob's going to do the same thing. I mean, I do the same thing. Ben's going to do the same thing. It's like, a lot of people are scared to get out there and kind of do it, but it's like, man, nobody really knows like what they're doing, or you don't know what the next day is going to bring or what next year is going to look like. It's just, you just find a way to sort of make it work and, take your skills. So that was something that you kind of touched on there that I think it was a really, really good point.
When I moved from retail to NutriBio and I got the job, this is like the stupidest thing I've ever done, but they gave me the job. They gave me the offer, and I was like, "Man, I can't believe you hired me." And they were like, "Why?" I was like, "Do you have Instagram? Like, do you know like how many smart people there are out there? And you start to realize that, like, because I think we're all bombarded with like content and information from other people that we perceive to be smarter than us, right? Like Jacob has Andy Frisella up on his wall. Like if someone compared Jacob to Andy, he'd be like, "Fuck no, there's no way," right? Like it's really easy to compare yourself to other people, and I know I suffer a lot from imposter syndrome. Like, I run a YouTube channel with 20,000 followers. I get to consult for some huge brands. I get to do some really cool stuff, but like, it doesn't always feel like that, right? Like Chris said, he's appreciative, but he's never satisfied. And it's really hard to get to a point. I don't know if you guys have ever felt this way, but I've never felt like anything I'm ever doing, like I've never felt like I could do this for the rest of my life. Like no matter what, I'm always trying to add more to my plate. And
there was a kid, I did a podcast with a kid yesterday, and Andrew,
great kid.
He said, what was your I made it moment? I'm like, I definitely don't have one. Like,
you never make it.
I was like, holy shit. I was like, there's no possible way.
I got pulled aside.
I was like, I don't think it'll ever happen.
I don't know if you guys ever listen to podcasts or whatever, but there's a guy named Ed Milet. He's Andy's partner in a lot of like businesses, but he calls it blissful dissatisfaction. So basically you are never content with where you are, but you are proud of where you've come from and where you, so it's a dichotomy that I always like look back on and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why I am the way that I am. And you guys are as well. So
it's easy to look back and know that I'm in a better spot, but it's hard to say what I'm doing right now is everything I want it to be yet, because I have so much aspirations for the future, right? Not that I'm not doing what I want right now, but I'm actively always looking forward to it. And I know probably Mike Roberto will watch this at some point and think that I'm not happy where I am. Like, it's just that I always know may not know what my next step is, but I know that I want it to be bigger, and I always have the next goal. Like, when I hit 25,000 followers on NutriBio's Instagram, it was like, all right, 50. Like it's never enough. And I remember a couple years ago, for some reason, I went down to the beach with some kids that I went to high school with. Like, I do not hang out with people that I went to high school with. It's like a horrible thing to do for anyone that has been successful. I'm sure, I doubt that any of you actually have friends from your high school anymore for some reason. It's just a constant thing I realize with successful people.
Not really.
But for some reason, I went down with them and we were all generally intoxicated. And one of the guys pulled me aside. He's like, "Man, I just can't believe the way you live your life." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You set goals and you just go smash them." And I'm like, "That's what goals are for. That's what you do with goals." You know what I mean? Like, and it made no sense to me. And now he's like a Bernie bro, so it makes sense to me now. But I just don't understand. Like, I never try to be like overly confident or like egotistical about it, but I don't understand this thought process that you can't do that.
Well, and also when you're sitting there, I know how I feel is like, even if you started to get complacent, because we all can do it, right? But look, when you surround yourself with people that are just constantly just doing cool shit, it's like what you were saying earlier. You're like, "Fuck, Jacob, you're so good at You know, it's like this. But then, you know, Jacob is sitting there looking at someone else going, fuck, you are so good at this. You know, you're so much better than me. So it's like this, it's like that healthy competition, healthy motivation. Always talking about, like, you know, who you surround yourself, you're a product of your environment kind of thing. All those cliches are true. Cause I know if I get up and I don't handle business, I know that somebody else that's close to me, you don't have to like necessarily go out there and, you know, I always talk about, like, not necessarily listen to podcasts. Not there's anything wrong with it. It's like, it's good to hear those things. I was like, but it's really good to have people that you can just pick up the phone and call, you know, I mean, I know I can get motivation at any point of the day if I call Chris Waldrum, you know what I mean?
Amen.
And it's true. It's 100% true, you know, or you guys. So it's like finding those people and surrounding yourself, but you have to, there's literally like 0% chance that those people are going to all be in your hometown, right? And where you grew up and where you started working. So it's like you have to get out there and kind of do it, you know, kind of thing. That's what I had to do anyway.
Goal getter, goal crusher. Yeah, no, sorry. Ben, you got it.
I was just gonna say, like, really on that, the example you said, Justin, like, you can be really, like, you can see the stuff that Jacob makes and you can be like, oh, like, Jacob's so much better at that. But like, you sit down and put something together. Like, I know, like, I sat down and did a vlog for Nutraceuticals the other day and like actually spent the time with the drone footage and After Effects and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, like, okay, like any, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, fuck, like all I had to do is put effort in. Not that I'm as good as Jacob is, but like when you actually do it, you're like, shit, like, okay, I can do this. All right. Like it's
possible.
It is possible, you know?
It's all about focus. I mean, what are you like directing your focus towards right now?
Yeah.
And, you know, you and I had that conversation yesterday. You're kind of focused towards another like mission right now for another company. And so, you know, getting back to that creative side is it's a different focus, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's just, it's cool to have that, like, oh wait, it is possible with effort, you know, it is that realization. The other thing too is that we only see highlight reels of everyone else's work, right? We only see Jacob on the beach with his 360 cam, you know, like we don't see like Jacob messing with the keyframes and messing up and getting frustrated and all the stuff that goes into that, right? Like
those keyframes suck, by the way.
I'm sure they do.
They suck. It's literally, it's every single frame has to be tracked, but that's a different story.
So the kid that Justin podcasted with the other day, Andrew Calvino, like, he's just starting off in content, and it's like so cool to see someone so positive and committed, because a lot of people get sucked into that paralysis by analysis, and like you end up watching people like Jacob or Holden, the guy who does the vlogs for Ghost, and you're like, I'll never make something like that. But if you just start at the bottom and get moving, you all of a sudden you find yourself at the top at some point.
Yeah, man. Just on that, with like a little bit of like neurology, neuroplasticity, even when you're older, you could still build new memories. You could still build new neural pathways. And that is how we like learn new things. So when you tell yourself you can't, like, literally your brain is built to be able to obtain, store, and put neural pathways so you could learn how to get these kind of accomplishments with anything. But case in point, like Jacob said, if you're not focused on it, if you're not determined, like, you literally have to sit down and tell your brain, like, you're going to fucking write this in to a neural pathway so your neurons fire every time you think this way to obtain that, or it will not happen. If you're motivated and you tell yourself, it's just like, what is it, CT Fletcher that's like, motherfucking biceps grow. Is that CT Fletcher? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I command you to grow. Yep.
So I command my brain to obtain knowledge, and I read and research, more so audio tapes reading. Stephanie, don't hate me if you live. I read a lot of like medical journals. I read a lot of articles, and I do a lot of audio books. But I like obtain everything. But I tell myself, like, you are going to obtain this. You're going to obtain this, because when you talk to people, you want to be able to recite it, and not just recite it, but recite it in a way that other people could understand, assimilate it, digest it, and then truly appreciate it. And that means that you actually understand what you're saying and not just regurgitating it, which a lot of these people are just like, hey, XYZ. It's like, well, why XYZ? And they're like, I don't know. That's just, what the paper told me. But definitely, like, if you're motivated to learn something, and this is anybody watching, and you three too, and this is probably why you guys are excelling so much and so fast, you got to demand your brain, your body to obtain this kind of knowledge. Like, motherfucker, do it. And so I do like, I do memory tests, memory games with myself every single day, with objects, with like sentences, poems, paragraphs, to make my brain like grow and expand to the point where I could like absorb all this knowledge. So, and that's like my big thing. I just like knowing everything about whatever I could possibly know about. Usually random, useless stuff, but you know.
Well, so
that's all that matters.
So I want to talk about there's a lot of things that we could unpack in there. Especially there was like one thing you said about, you know, anyone. I think that people are sort of rejecting the whole, you know, you go on Instagram and you read like a nice caption about science stuff, and you know, it's like people are like, okay, well, anyone can copy and paste that. So a lot of people like videos and they like live formats and things like that, which we all do tons of that stuff, because it's like, no, we really know this stuff. Like, you know, it's not just, you know, we'll go research it and then I'll regurgitate it somewhere. So I think that that's like a powerful thing when you can, you know, it so well.
Just a little bit of that.
Right.
Just a little bit of that.
A little bit. but there's like something to it, Chris, that I wanted to talk to you about. Because you're very into reading about, so there's this taboo sort of thing with supplements, is that we can't talk about how we can help real medical problems with supplements. But we all know that that's bullshit. We all know that you can. And I don't know if we're going to get cut off for me saying that, but we know it's possible to use supplements and to fight certain things, especially maybe long term. Like we could use things long term. So you've hinted at a few projects that really are like kind of blurring those lines, especially with like brain health and things like that you're really passionate about. So I was kind of wondering like how much, like when you look at, say, something like that you're reading in medical, like how much of your brain goes to, I could help this with one of my brands or something like that, or I could come up with, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like because you read into that stuff a lot, it's like, man, I could do something about this because I have the resources and I have the knowledge.
Yeah, man, that kind of goes to like, what's the world's issues? I think there's two issues that the world has. I think our hearts are corrupted, our souls and hearts are corrupted, and our bodies are toxic. Our bodies have become septic. So we have no ability, we have no lens or siphon to really understand what the fuck is impacting us. And that's why we're just like robots. We're like, something happened to us. I have this past situation that put this thought process. I can't determine what's actually happening, so I only use my emotions, and now I'm going to burn somebody's business. You know what I mean? Antifa, all this shit going on. That is a septic body and a poor soul. So when I'm doing stuff, and you like the neurological company that I want to do that I haven't told anybody about except for you, I would love to be able to give people just a blank start or as clean a start as they can. So when information comes into them with all of their emotional precursors like in mind, they're able to really dictate and form a true opinion, not from a septic body, not from a septic heart. So I'd love to be able to do something that helps people's brains get cleansed, because our brains, obviously the majority of our brains, there's a lot of fat up there. Guess what? Your fat is what stores all of these toxins. A lot of these plastic toxins, phthalates, ED2, hormones get stored in our brain. So we're not able to make logical decisions like we were way back when. So even though we have this like surplus of information that's readily available, our lens and our perception of that is completely distorted. So as it comes in, we only have this emotional context and reaction to that, because we become this like primitive, idiotic emotional species again, like we were maybe like 14,000 fucking years ago. So I'd love to have something that is like giving people a foundation of knowledge and then cleansing their palate. So when that knowledge and information comes in, they could really like truly understand it and, you know, make some, dude, change the fucking world, man. Oh, God damn it. I'm stoked, dude. That's all I want to do.
Is that the Rambo?
Wow.
Is that Rambo coming
That
out?
was Rambo.
I was going to say, like, what?
Oh, knife!
Well, I think we've all, like, one thing you touched on there, like one thing we've all sort of spoken about is, so you try to help people, right? But also your business is kind of run on the fact of doing things for other people. Like, okay, I'll solve your problem for you. But it's like, and we all know in our own way that fuck, that is like not helping really. So it's like you have this struggle of, really, but you know, you got to pay the bills. You need people to pay you. It's like, you know, I really want you to not, like, you know, so that I know that's something you've talked about. We talked about on the happy hours a few times. It's like, man, our businesses rely on it, but it's like you try to find ways where it's like, okay, I want to equip you with the tools instead of just a transactional sort of relationship like that.
Yeah, dude, we're all capitalists, man. Ben, you're a capitalist. I know you're the same mindset of me, even though I don't think that capitalism is going to be the end all, because all isms have some sort of era and they come and go. You just need to be progress past that before the cataclysm comes like we're coming with now. But yeah, man, I don't know. We all want to make money, but there's a lot of different ways that we could benefit people. So like one thing before I get off on this tangent, one thing that we're going to do, we give back to nonprofits already, and we have a couple that we give back to. But beyond trying to give back more money and donate to people, we're going to start doing contests and giveaways, and not give away like inspired products. We're going to be giving away credits to like Audible, credits to like bookstores, so people can buy books. I don't care what they buy, but buy a fucking book and educate themselves. As long as it's not like a modern day Marxist book, they could get into it. I'm gonna put that on the banned fucking books list. You know what I mean? But something to like enrich people's lives. And the only way that we could like prevail from this like dark system that we're casted is through knowledge, is through obtaining knowledge, dude. And that's what's scary about them trying to be able to block or ban these kind of books and information from us. So yeah, man, we could do it. It's just not easy.
I think it's unfortunate because you're talking about how like you get in this transactional relationship, and I see a lot of times that these sports nutrition companies try to switch to something that you're talking about, where it's more of an enlightened move like that, where you're helping people out. It's received very negatively because, you know, but if you were to remove yourself from the situation and enter to the customer in a new face, when just be talking about this, you'd be received completely differently. Like if you started a completely new company and it didn't even say Chris Waldrum on it, a lot of customers would be like way more receptive to it. But the second Stack 3D post, like Chris Waldrum, brand of the year from 2019, by the way, is, you know, launching this thing, like you get all this negativity, you know, it sucks because people see someone trying to pivot, and the second they see pivot, they think, oh, this is bullshit.
Okay, I got to totally interject. Okay, so this is it, man. Integrity is doing what you should be doing and not telling every other motherfucker out there. So if you're gonna do something, you gotta tell other people, dude. And this is the only way to progress to whatever different dimension or system that we're in. If you believe in heaven, that's how you get there. I don't believe in heaven, but I think that we're finally gonna get out of these meat fucking sockets that we're stuck in and go to something else, or maybe just nowhere. I don't care what you think. If you're an atheist, but do not do something and expect reward and praise. Do something because you should be a good fucking human and not a piece of shit motherfucker that say, hey, Justin, I just donated $10,000 to so-and-so. And I get that game. I totally get that game. But that just makes you a self-absorbed, narcissistic motherfucker like a lot of people on this earth. And it does. So yeah, dude, Inspired decides to give 50% of profits to this. Fuck those guys. Why do you have to announce it? We've done a lot of things without anybody knowing. And I know, like one thing to mention them, because I do appreciate Ryan Fitness Supplement, what they're going to do was, you know, people that really give back to the community. I think that we need to identify and really put those people on a higher altar. But if those people are only there because they continue to bloat about what they're doing, like, hey, I gave Justin $10 just to get gas. Why the fuck do I care? I don't care. You helped that guy out. That made you a better person. But spreading that devalues that effort to really help people. So yeah, dude, great point. If you're out there to just tell people, shut the fuck up, we hate you. You know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah, there was one thing even I didn't know about because one thing that has always bothered me, and you see it in the supplement space, but you see it everywhere, is the way that companies use the military as a way to make sales. Because they're like, okay, well, I will, you basically, I'm like, are you trying to guilt me into buying your shitty product because you're collaborating with the military? You're trying to do it for the military? That pisses me off. So anyway, one thing about you that I didn't even know, being a friend of yours, was what you did with the child trafficking thing. It was just like, it just like came up out of nowhere. Like one day I popped up and you were doing that whole thing. And I was like, holy shit, man, why didn't you tell me about this? Like, it wasn't to be like, well, so I could go tell everyone, but it was just because it was just a really cool thing to do. And that sort of goes back to exactly what you're talking about. Like you live that life. You're like, I just went and did this because it was the right fucking thing to do.
Amen, brother. So yeah,
it's so hard to talk about it though, because in today's day and age, obviously you want to document everything for content, right? And maybe not curate content, but you want to at least like document what you're already doing. And it's so hard to just like share like, hey, this is something we did this month, because you want to tell your community without it being over the top. Two that I can think of that did it in a tasteful way were Alphaline and Ghost this year. Alphaline did the Vitamin Angels thing for the third world, which a few different companies have done. Vitamin Shop is big with them. And Ghost did, I think for every bottle of greens they sold, they planted a tree, which was kind of cool, or they paid someone to plant a tree.
Yeah, that is actually awesome. So good on Ghost for that. I think that's
but then you see people that like need to like shove it down your throat, and it just turns a lot of people off, I think. Or have you guys seen those videos like on YouTube of like people like giving money to homeless people or like bringing food?
Yeah, it's like why
That's
are you putting this on video?
exactly.
I can only imagine what that homeless person felt like. Like, hey, here's food and here's this fucking camera in your face. Like, hey, you know, you fucking smell. You're on the side of the ground. Like, do you want me to take you to get your shower? Like, I wouldn't want that shower if I'm gonna have a videotape of me like accepting it. You know?
Yeah, that was something that you mentioned about. You know, we'll have Jordan, I'm sure, on here at some point. But I just remember talking to him the one day, and it was just like, he's like, "Oh man, you know, let me call in a little bit." He's like, "I'm just kind of doing this thing." And then come to find out, he was there in Colombia. Like, he's like, well, we're doing like the shoe drive for children and stuff like that. And they're, you know, providing all these kids with shoes. And I'm like, and you're not telling anybody about it. Like, I made him, like, I was like, what, you know, like, you know, I kind of forced the details out of him, what they were doing. But it's kind of one of those things. He's like, it's just the right thing to do. It's what we believe in. And then he's like, just don't say anything, you know, to people. And I'm like, how do I not tell people this? You know what I mean? But it's just, you know, it kind of goes in that same vein, which is really cool.
Someone just wrote, or actually Will Whitlock from Leviathan is in the chat talking about companies that use dead athletes to promote products. I don't know if any of you guys saw that in the last couple of years.
No idea who you guys are talking about. Not other things.
Oh man. Well, can we go down a rabbit hole for a little bit? Can we talk? Can we talk about some stuff?
We like the first hour of everything I do. It's first 50%.
It's been 59 minutes, so we're clear.
Okay, yeah, let's get weird. Let's get weird.
Let's do it. You guys ready?
Okay, cheers, fellas.
Already had, yeah.
Bowie knife.
Woo!
Woo!
Dude, like, okay, just to end that, like, when I recorded that, I, like, obviously screamed at the top of my lungs, and I'm driving by, like, I'm in a very modest, highbrow, like, high-income town. It's super clean. Everybody's religious. And I was all, Bowie knife! And I look over, and the lady's all, fuck, like, get out of here. Who is that guy? Yeah, so I was like, I put my head down. I was like, hey, Justin, you know, I'm sorry coming at you like that.
Right. That was amazing. Yeah, I think I saw there was two messages. One was like 30 seconds and one was like 3 seconds. The second one was like, hey man, sorry about that. And I'm just in my car laughing my ass off. I was like, man, it's like 11:30 in the morning where you are, man. Like who's like that, like jacked up, like Bowie knifed out at 11:30 in the morning. I was like, I love it, man. You got to have Chris Waldrum in your life, man. I recommend it for everybody.
Dude, so go down. Let's get something. Like who wants to start this? And let's take like each category and then just envelop our own thoughts on it, even with how obscure, abstract, and weird it gets.
What do you want to talk about? What's something that's been on your mind? I mean, you gotta save something for Friday though, too, for us. I mean, I gotta, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna use all my G. So man, to preface that, I had like an hour-long conversation with my Australian partner before this, and I was like, John, I'm gonna get on a call, and I have no more, because we went over like next year's schedule, new formulas I've been working on, flavor and design, names and everything, and I was like, please leave something. So I totally understand. Okay, so the one thing that I would love to get your guys' input on, because it's not talked about enough, and I'm always like the red herring on this, or the canary in the coal mine, like, listen, motherfucker, I'm dying. There's no more oxygen. Nobody talks about why, not just men's testosterone, because women's testosterone has gone tremendously, and women need to have testosterone, and it's gone down, I mean, almost 60% over the past couple of decades. Men from the 40s gone down about 50%. And there's a lot of different environmental factors that are contributing to this, but one of the main things that are contributing to this are just a lot of these different chemicals that are put inside of plastics. And it's not just plastics, which we'll get into, but it's also these hormones that are inside, like birth control. So do you guys ever think about that? Is there anything that you guys want to say, or, you know, like interject and hear it?
I have a lot to say about this one.
I have some thoughts. I'll take the floor now.
I'm not an expert on the plastics and hormones and stuff, but I do think that in the environment, like not just literal environment, but like the thought process that we go through, the way that we talk to each other, the way that we live in this society, the roles that we take in our relationships, and not just like male-female relationships, but like just our relationship with people outside of our own lives has really had a detrimental effect on our testosterone and just like our personal feelings on who we are and how we are. You know, like I am a firm believer that it's okay to be an overprotective boyfriend, or like to have that male aggression, that, you know, androgen effect. I'm a firm believer in that. I love it. I think it's cool. I think like you were talking about being a dad earlier. Like, how many guys our age are talking about how cool it is to be a dad? Most guys our age are like fucking terrified. And maybe rightfully so, but it's a hard environment to get into, you know? I don't
cool,
want one right now.
Cool is cool, you know, regardless if you're a dad or not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Have you guys ever watched Mad Men?
Oh yeah.
It's like my favorite fucking show of all time. And it's just you watch that shit. Like I think they went through what, like the 60s and 70s in that show, 50s, 60s. And you're like, man, shit was so cool back then. You could like have fist fights in the office when you like disagreed with other people, and like it was okay. And you drank at 3 o'clock in the office, and you went home and you protected your wife, and your kids were like proud of you. And like, I don't know what happened. Yeah.
Get back to that.
No, we're in the age right now of a different level of like acceptance of causality. We're in the age where we think everything happens to us and it's the person's fault. The other person's fault or the other situation's fault. And we used to be in a situation where that happened, they would evaluate it and be like, okay, fuck, I'm not gonna let that happen again. But it's just this different level of like blame and accountability that we're offsetting continually. And that, like, dude, yeah, that is to do with our testosterone dropping. Like, everybody knows a guy has low testosterone, a soy boy, whatever you want, a beta male. I don't know if beta males have low testosterone because there's no studies to say that somebody that's submissive has low testosterone, but it may be contributed to that. But if you have lower testosterone, the thing that makes a man, guess what? You're not going to be that much of a man. And there's no debate on that whatsoever at all. There's no debate on the chromosomes, what makes a man and what makes a woman. What makes a man is, you know, anyways, we're not going to get into that because I get into live. So
I felt for a long time that I would love to see a study done on like different characteristics of different people. Like, I don't like, it could go in a lot of different directions, like your personality, your sexual orientation, a lot of different stuff, like how you live your life, your job, all that different stuff, the amount of partners you've had, all that stuff, and see if there's any correlation with your testosterone to estrogen ratio, or, you know, all sorts of different hormones in your body. I understand it's probably not very moral of a study to do. I feel like not a lot of colleges would want to do that, but I have to wonder if at least the characteristics of aggressive versus submissive, protective versus not giving a fuck, have to do something with your hormones.
Nature versus nurture. Nature.
Well, right. So with your question about testosterone, like, I don't have like studies or numbers to back this up. This is just like my gut feeling about this. I don't know much about like the plastics. I know from like what you and I talked about. What I do feel very strongly about is that there's the government, people in charge, right? It's more beneficial for everyone to have us sick, right? So however we're going to keep each other sick, then that's what they're going to do, right? So one part of that is, and we also, Chris and I, we talked about this on Happy Hour before, it's more beneficial to have people in basically, instead of two genders, right? Let's throw everybody in the middle where they're more easily controllable, right? We talk about this too. We can go really far down this rabbit hole because we talk about this on Fridays a lot, but it's like, it's just more beneficial for everyone money-wise to have us need them to take care of us with some sort of, you know, if you create a disease and then create a cure for that disease, and then you can sell, you know, the medication for it and stuff like that. You know that that's true. I don't need like, you know, studies and stuff like that and numbers that you just know it. It's like you and I talk about when I was like, I'll never get a flu shot in my life because they give them away for free. I was like, fuck you, they're not free. I was like, there's nothing free. The government doesn't give away anything for free. And they're like, oh, we'll give you a flu shot and we'll also like give you money off your groceries. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I don't know what that is. I was like, I don't trust you. You're not fucking doing it to me. I'll never get one. But it's just like the whole concept of us being sick and men, you don't, right? You see the you know, attack on men in general. You don't want men. We talk about toxic masculinity and all that bullshit. It's like, we need more masculinity. But if we had more of it, I think we would have less of the shit we see now because people wouldn't stand for it. There'd be more people to shut this shit down because now you just have small sort of sects of people like willing to speak up about it, but the majority of people are starting to blend the genders and the whole thing in the middle, and then nobody gives a fuck. So
Yeah.
I don't buy any of it. I can't stand any of it. It's all bullshit.
That was beautiful.
What do you think, Ben?
That was
beautiful.
No lie.
I do a lot of happy hours with Chris.
Wow, there was so many different directions to take this, and I was thinking about all of them.
Yeah,
like
so
at
definitely
the same
on
time.
that one, to interject real quick. So yeah, let's talk about like environmental, and then more of the like, I guess, societal, cultural. So environmental is going to be more of the like phthalates, BP, all these different plastics, and then hormones that are in the system. And then cultural is going to be the cancel culture. You know what I mean? Like you can't say anything now because somebody's going to get offended. But both of those are like universes. So let's go down like chemically what's happening, and then let's get into like the cultural, because they both need to be talked about. And I know a lot of people are interested and they're scared to say anything because you're going to offend somebody. But as far as like chemicals, one thing that you guys might already know, so whenever we ingest anything, like our bodies, our livers, they don't like, it doesn't keep or store everything inside of it. A lot of it, you piss it out, you urinate it out. And when it goes into the water supply, there are no city ordinance, there's no city water systems that are able to filtrate out these hormones. So girls that are on birth control, which I'm not completely opposed to it, maybe a little bit more now that I'm becoming educated. But when you're taking this birth control, or like, this would be guys watching this. So guys, when your lady is taking the birth control so you don't get her preggers, she's pissing that out. Guess what happens? It gets flushed down, filtrated, comes back through tap water. A lot of people drink tap water, or a lot of people put it through the filter systems. That filter system, not just at your home, but the city ordinance does not take out these hormones. They actually start to like magnify and grow exponentially inside the water, and you ingest it. So every single water that you're drinking right now, legitimately everything is going to have something like EE2, which is in a lot of the birth controls, are different kind of like estrogen inside the birth control that people are drinking. So this is something that people like don't get too terrified, but you need to be aware of it, at least to take some sort of
Terrified
measures.
Oh yeah, kill it.
Yeah. Does this
Kill it?
Dude, so the good thing about like alcohol, which is just contributing more to my not alcoholism. Okay. Yeah. So the one is not stored in plastic. So the only time that you're gonna get foods that are gonna have something that has like an endocrine disruptors are in the processing plants, because if it has plastic, it's gonna absorb some of that. So there's a lot of lawsuits going into like sports nutrition. We got in a lawsuit of manufacturing plants. They will sue you for having something over per parts per million, depending on what state you're in, because every state has different guidelines. But it just came from the manufacturing plant, just from going on the belt, just from going on whatever metal that it's on right now. And now saying that it has over this part per million legitimately, and almost every single product is going to have a little bit over that, whatever the state guidelines or that's suing you, parts per million. The same thing goes into everything that you ingest. So as long as it doesn't go through a lot of plastic, you're probably okay. But everything else in the supermarket, if it's stored in plastic, just be like super wary. And if you could buy glass, I wish I was sponsored by something like that so I could make money off this, but I can't. I just don't want people to die too soon.
that was a lot.
Yeah, random stuff. So
That was a lot.
So
Now let's talk about environment.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not good. I'm not good. Like I'm not good with the chemical stuff. That's Chris's wheelhouse for sure.
How do we get away from that, though? That's my thing. Like, if you go drink water bottles that's in plastic, if you like, what am I supposed to do?
dude, we're addicted to convenience. And convenience is great because we're all in a hurry. And that's the
If
same.
you tell me to go get water from a stream, I'm not doing it because I live in New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fucked up because even like the water table, even if you get it from like a natural source that took like thousands, if not 100,000 years to be able to get there, even that is getting corrupted because all of these agrochemicals start sinking down. And like the biggest agrochemical that we know is an endocrine disruptor is atrazine, and it's an herbicide. And it's an herbicide that freaking, man, I always forget the guy's name, but he's a super loud guy, conspiracy theorist, got his YouTube taken off.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
The frogs are gay.
The frogs, dude. Yeah.
Gay frogs. So yeah,
Glyphosate.
like it's sad that it's true. So glyphosate is definitely a carcinogen, but atrazine is an endocrine disruptor. Both are going to lead to obviously cancer. One's going to lead to men having lower sperm mobility, And if you give it another couple hundred years, not even a couple, maybe like 100 years, a couple generations, literally like they call it chemical castration, literal chemical castration that happens in frogs and fish, amphibians that are in the stream. And our bodies are not identical, but they're similar enough to know that these chemicals going into us and ingesting us is going to have some sort of like physiological effect. So atrazine is the most used herbicide. That's on everything. It's on everything. Corn,
Okay.
mostly, and a lot of soy.
Luckily, we're an adaptable species. I'll just say that.
Well, so
Dude,
that
adaptable, but your DNA gets changed.
It
You adapt,
mutates.
and then it gets given down to your babies. So the only adaptation is that now you've been corrupted. Your genetic code, which is just like a computer code, gets corrupted, and then it gives that same code down to your baby.
Here's the thing, Chris. I've learned a lot from commenters on your native area Stack 3D comment sections. And if there's anything I've learned from them, it's that if it's not a human study, it doesn't matter. And that's a frog study, and we're humans. Yeah. So frog studies don't count. If it didn't count for ingredients and supplements, it's not going to count for estrogen.
Yep. No, absolutely, dude. And that's the same thing with like taking a cultures like a petri dish. And like the majority of all studies are done in petri dishes. And if you have like this other aspect, introduce it to this environment, does it have any like effect on it's going to have an effect on that. That's going to have a direct cellular effect. At least with like rodents, and even more so with amphibians, it's coming into the body on a different level. You're not injecting it. This is just like the environment that they're put into. So are we like, we're not fucking frogs, obviously, but do you think that you can drink a bunch of this shit and like nothing's going to happen to you?
Probably not.
It's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely. Are there any like human studies with it per se? Man, I don't know. There might be. I'd have to look it up.
You know what's really funny is like 4 years ago, I was doing a lot of presentations with GNC. So I would go to these areas and I would talk to like 50 managers at a time. And I went to this one in like Rhode Island. And this one manager of a store was like absolutely fucking crazy. Like just absolutely nuts. And he like interrupted my presentation. I was like talking about proprietary blends or something. And he went off on a tirade about this stuff I did not know what it was. It was called glyphosate. And he went off about how sucralose is horrible for all of us. And like 4 years ago, I thought he was crazy, but these days I realize he was probably smarter than all of us.
Yeah. So like one thing we need to go back to is like capitalism. even when it goes to like extremely nefarious, it could be the biggest carcinogen. You go back to like Mad Men, like smoking.
Yeah.
It's all about. The whole show was being like,
Lucky Strikes.
Nah, not really. I mean, come on. Are you smoking 10 packs a day? And the same thing goes with like cell phone radiation. They're like only continual exposure has like soft tissue heating. The radiation gets soft tissue heated up. But guess what? If you're on the phone 12 hours a day, which the majority of us are, you're doing that. So they always will give you the cherry pick studies. And like the best thing that came out of like knowing how these like published studies came about is they only come about when somebody funds it because it's very, very expensive. So it's always given from the lens. Not just from the lens, but the people, the curator is able to give it to his peers to be the ones that negate what goes in it, what goes out. So you don't just have like a complete bias funded from a corporation like ExxonMobil or, Monsanto or Pfizer or Moderna. You have the people that are looking at it too. So they're funding it. Obviously that researcher is getting a lot of money to do that. He's not going to be like, you know what? This might cause autism. This might make you grow a third arm. They're going to give it at the lens of their controller, of their employer. Like if I had an employer, I wasn't going to come out and say ISO 100 is going to kill you. Obviously it's not. That's just, for the sake of conversation. I would never say that. So when you look at these studies, they're always given through the lens of their masters. And not only that, their peers are the ones that are saying, literally, if you look at this and you see the person that like puts on the study and then everybody behind it, a lot of those people, they're just the peers that are looking at these studies that are like, okay, yeah, it's completely validated. Nobody talks about that. It's just like peer reviewed. Who the fuck are your peers? If your peers are working for the same monopolistic pharmaceutical company, they're going to be like, yeah, Joe, this doesn't do shit. Give it to everybody. Like, so think about it. I mean, the most.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, Jake.
Oh, well, I was going to say the peers are typically, in a good research setting, the R1 universities that go through and take the study model and actually replicate it. And so then,
That doesn't happen all the time, though.
Well, that should happen, in an ideal world. But that's what peer reviewed should technically mean. I don't know if the term has been botched or used so much that people just kind of avoid what it actually means. But it really should be passed between R1 universities, which means research level 1, which is on the chemical and biological basis. R2 or R3, they don't count. But everybody throws around that term, peer reviewed. I'm like, okay, well, all right, what schools? What universities have reconducted the study and followed it all the way through, all of the way through? Excuse me.
That phrase is a lot like grass-fed, which actually I remember learning a lot about from Chris Waldrum about 3 years ago. It has completely changed definitions. Like, you would think it means they're grass-fed, but that does not what it means. I mean, they may have been reviewed by their peers, but not replicated.
Dude, absolutely. And that was like the most like profound thing that I've learned just talking to like neurologists, which I'm so grateful that I know neurologists, people that have gone through this process and have become like renegades and outcasts in the community just because they're exposing this, like whistleblowers that are coming out talking about this. There's many ways to deceive people, man. Just like it's so easy to make a label that makes you think that this is going to make you gain 50 pounds of lean mass, peer reviewed, and still like the good studies, these good medical studies, you and I will never be able to see. There's no way to obtain that unless you have a doctorate. So there's so much information that is far, far past our ability to ever to obtain, unless like, you have a doctor friend, he gets it and then shows you that, like, just because you could go on PubMed, that is like this superficial layer of being able to see the actual truth to this stuff. All the bad things that's happened with these agro companies and whatnot, you're never going to see. You're never going to see. So it's just, this is just one.
Well, at that point, it's not legitimate data then. Like, dude, it's not public.
No, nailed it. Absolutely. So this is my question. It's not legitimate data. And there's a lot of stuff that's coming out, a lot of drugs, vaccines that are coming out, herbicides, pesticides that are coming out that don't have legitimate data to say it's safe. So what do you do to combat that?
Good question.
Well, you can't disprove a negative, if I heard that correctly.
I mean, if you have like, if you have Tony Stark's money and he has Iron Man and you just have like $1 billion,
right?
You can definitely do a lot. But people like you and I, people with just means or some sort of like, position that we come from, we're not billionaires, and billionaires typically like coagulate and congregate with other billionaires, dude. So how do you combat this when this is a society that depends on this brotherhood system? We could go into like the Epstein thing because that's like crazy too. But,
well, one thing that you're talking about too that we always see, Chris, we talked about this before, is the fact that if you say, because we're all opportunistic in what we're doing, right, in our own lives kind of things, we're going to take care of ourselves first, right? So if you find out, or if there's potential for danger 3 or 4 generations down the road, like you and I had a long conversation about that the one day about, this stuff might happen, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. So you're kind of like, well, I'm going to be out by then anyway. So who gives a fuck? Like, let me just make my money now. That'll become someone else's problem sort of down the road. And there's a lot of that. Not saying like specifically to what you're talking about right here, but there's a lot of that kind of going on. It seems like on certain levels of it where you're like, well, this could be an issue, but we probably won't have to worry about it. So, let's make the money off of it now. And then, it could become someone else's problem down the road.
Burn and run. What do you think, Ben?
Well, can I take you on a bit of a positive path instead of, to ask Chris Waldrum, in today's society, you have a phone, right? You have an iPhone. You have to be active on social media, right? Like you got to do all that stuff. How do you live healthily and feel good about the way that you're raising your child and stuff without getting off the grid, right? Instead of like buying a cabin in the middle of Utah and hunting your own food and reverse osmosising your own water out of the ground to make sure that there's no estrogen in it. Like, what do you do without being Chris Gethin?
Jesus.
Man, great point. So, dude, and this is like, I talk to parents all the time, and it's the same way that a religious person should approach somebody that's non-religious. You don't just overwhelm them and dump all this information and tell the person that you're a bad individual, that you're fucking up as a parent. Because when you're a parent, you're extremely insecure and you have this ego that makes you want to be a good parent, even if you're a completely fucking idiot, dude. And there's a lot of parents that are complete fucking idiots that should never be parents, but that's a whole different story. So when you go and you like give information, and this is the biggest problem and hurdle that I have to get over, like, and maybe you guys, you have to deal with it. Not maybe, you have to deal with it too. When you allude to whatever like information bait that you cannot say, why don't you know this? Why don't you know this? You have to go at some like receptive level to say, hey, these are the things that I know that I've learned over years. And maybe you need to start looking at this at your own pace and at your own level of awareness where it doesn't overwhelm you. But if you say like, hey man, the sky's falling down, we're all gonna die, they'll cut you off and be like, fuck, ignorance is bliss. Head in the sand, I don't give a shit because it's not affecting me. And a lot of parents, like, they don't really care. No, let me track that. A lot of parents care about their kids, but they don't care about them in the essence of, or in the manner like future generations. They care about their kids, but they don't really care about their kids' per se. They're only stuck in the singular moment of saying like, hey, I don't want my kid to be abducted. I don't want him to choke on something. I don't want him to jump off a bridge. Totally. But they're not looking at it in a manner like, hey, you know, me and Jacob were talking about a little bit ago. Everything you're doing right now to your body, you're changing your genetic code in some way or another. And our genetic,
epigenetics. Yep.
That's a wild topic.
Dude, CRISPR, like, we could change our genetic code. Listen to me. Like, if I want to merge myself with a starfish so I can regrow an arm, I'm going to do that shit someday, motherfucker. So you just need to be very aware of all the circumstantial environmental things. And it's overwhelming because guess what? Corporations have laden everything that we do with this surplus, a myriad of all these different toxins. So you start with one and you go like, hey, why don't you like maybe take out this conditioner or this soap that you're using? Why? Like, why would I do that? It smells so great. With like, well, this is proven to be an endocrine disruptor, or this is proven to be like anti-androgenic, which a lot of these like substances are. Okay, that's great. So you create this, I don't know, educational system, just like teaching a child, because I was a child and I'm still a child. I'm still learning so much. I'm still a complete moron when it comes to a lot of this shit. And we're all like students here. And you put some sort of like tangible layer of like understanding and acceptance to where you could truly know the impact that's not just going to impact you, because our time here is fleeting completely, but it's going to impact everybody else around you. Like you guys, what I know, I want to impact you guys, and I want you to impact the people around you. So once you know like the dire necessity of having this information on you, then you could grow. But yeah, you definitely don't overwhelm everybody, and I do that all the time. So anyways, yeah.
Isn't that like, that's something that you and I talked about before, about what I think what we see a lot just socially, politically, the whole 9 yards anymore is there's a responsibility, although, and all of us are outspoken, we give our opinions, like that's part of like what we do, but there is a responsibility for how you deliver that message, whether you like it or not. You know, you hear a lot of people are, I don't give a fuck, like I just say what I want. It's like, yeah, well, people don't respond to that. So if you really want to be taken seriously about a message, and what we kind of see this competition in, because you have to get, say, media attention, stuff like that, you have to get people's attention. So you have to be more extreme than the next person, because you're like, wait a minute, I've got something to say. I feel it's really important. Well, this person's speaking louder than you, so I'm going to go out there and I'm going to, you know, wreck some shit and I'm going to get some attention. And it's like, that's where we're going. You lose the essence of how do you deliver your message most appropriately. You know, you see some of the great like speakers before, you know, and the way they deliver their messages, you know, whether it's John F. Kennedy or Martin Luther King Jr., you see them, the way they speak to people and sort of connect with people has a certain like, you know, connection with them. It's not, you know, this whole thing where it's like, okay, we're going to one up each other all the time, which we're kind of stuck in now. So it's like, you know, when you see people, whether it's kneeling during the national anthem or whatever, and then it's like, okay, well, now that pisses me off, so I'm going to get my point across by doing something extreme to combat that. And it's like, you sort of lose the whole point of what you were doing it for to begin with, because then it turns into who can grab the most attention with the most extreme way possible. And it's just like a constant game of like one-upping each other. So like, I think what you were talking about, we've hit on it before, like the responsibility of your words, but how you say them. Two people can have the same message, but they can be received, completely differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think Ben could speak on that for sure, because maybe he's taken out of context as much as I am.
We had a like, this is completely off topic, but also on topic at the same time. We had someone write in the chat a couple minutes ago, "Hey Ben, what was that ashwagandha that you said is way better than KSM 66?"
Way better.
I don't. Yeah, I'm sure that they mean that. Which one did you say had higher with analyte content than KSM?
So that's not way better,
right? But someone is going to watch this video and see the chat and send that to KSM 66. Be like, Pricewell hates your fucking ashwagandha.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I get it. No, that's funny because I said the one day I said, I reject the whole protein isolate is like the end all be all of anything protein. And I was like, I really like casein. So the next day I got a question like, why do you say casein's better? I was like, I didn't fucking say that it was better.
I was there for that.
Like,
I was so excited. I was like, I really want to hear Justin say this one. I want to know why is casein better.
Right? I was like, I didn't say that, but it's just, and then now, extrapolate that to, having, tons and tons of people to a really like powerful message that gets people really, really passionate. It's like, holy shit.
Justin, you really should be telling your followers why milk protein isolate's the best. That's what you should be doing with your
Noted.
Well, okay, so this is kind of an interesting topic to talk about here, though, because like with milk protein isolate, it contains like the natural
80%
ratio, right, of casein and whey. But I'm excited to hear Chris's take on this. Like, just because it's the way that it exists in nature, does that really mean that it's better?
Yeah. So like, where do we get our milk? Like, where do we get our milk?
What kind of milk? Like breast milk or cow milk? Because like where we get our milk, a lot of people would tell us that where we get our milk from is from breasts, and drinking cow milk is like fucking wrong because we're the only species that drinks another cow. I hate that whole argument. I love milk.
Yeah. So it's kind of like there's plurality in that. So yeah, we are born to suck from our mommy's titties. Like we are. And the configuration of what comes out of our mom's boobs is specifically made for us individually. My mom's boob milk wouldn't have made like Justin Hall and vice versa. Like legitimately, our biology, when our baby comes to the breast, it could like literally configures to that baby to be able to give the baby the sustenance. And the only reason I know this is because my wife is like on a whole different level beyond this, which is like, it's fascinating. So our bodies are like so malleable to every situation. Like talking about us to be able to configure to something, dude, it's insane. So yes, babies, 100% titty milk from your mom. And not even that, even an adopted mom, they could start lactating because women's bodies are receptive to like, dude, it is fucking fascinating. Just learned this with like fatherhood. But yeah, we are made to take the exact amino acid sequence, the glucose, all of the sugars, all the nutrients that come out and lactate in the women's breast from women's breast. Does that mean that we can't benefit from animals? Obviously not. Obviously not. Or we get fucked up from drinking like cow milk, from drinking these animals a couple different ways. So one, cows don't menstruate all the time, or they're not pregnant all the time. So when cows are pregnant, they start to lactate and they give all this milk out. So we have to artificially make this happen. Is that bad? Obviously, it's really bad. So even with goats, secondary with that, with drinking milk, I'm not an opponent of that. I'm just an opponent of like mitigating what could happen if you just always drink that. I'm going to segue to something else. Second, so when these cows eat the grass, when these cows ingest this corn is laden with a ton of herbicides. This corn is laden with atrazine. What do you think happens to the milk? It goes into the milk and we drink it down. So
there's fat in the milk. It absorbs the toxins. I learned this like a half hour ago.
Hey, see, you're paying attention.
Dude, you drink it all down. Exactly. So am I against it? Like, no, not completely against it. Am I like opposed to be completely addicted to it? Yeah, have some sort of like offset. Could you enjoy cheese? 100%. Ice cream? Yeah, in like moderation. So the key of all this is like moderation. But people that say you shouldn't drink it at all, have you had benefit 10,000 years ago when we started to like make this agrarian society? Yes, but you have to look at evolution. We are in this modern time frame. Did we have agrochemicals even 1,000 years ago? No. 2,000 ago? No. 3,000? Fuck no. 100 years ago? Yeah, we started getting into this. So you look at like cancers. So it's like the cherry picking thing. Like, is it bad? Like human evolution, is it bad now? Yeah, you gotta be very like wary of where your cows come from or what they're eating, and then what you're ingesting. Like that, there's no argument there.
So how did this play into, because you had a company for a while before you made a protein. So like, how did this, this sort of play into your process?
Oh man.
Of what? What do you mean?
Do the cows that make inspired protein?
Yeah, I mean, because there's there's only so many things, right? There's what you can do and what you're able to do, right? I mean, there's going to be a balance there. So obviously, I'm like not suggesting that you should have been out there, inspecting every cow, but it's like obviously this is important to you. So did that play into the process when you were making your protein and putting that together? Because like I said, you didn't, you had a company for a while, say before you actually released a protein.
Yeah, man. So, I'm an open book. So I became completely like disenfranchised when I learned that grass-fed, like, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean? It's not the marketing term.
I remember this.
Like, totally marketing term. And completely transparent. Like, no, we go through a process to make sure that it's the same process that any manufacturer, any provider will do. Like, there's no mold, there's no heavy metals, there's not a lot of things in there. But on a molecular level, could there be any like substrates that exist in there? Maybe. I have no idea. So did I go through a further process? I go through a big process, making sure that a provider is one of the most respected, and then sending all the materials out to get tested before it gets manufactured. Do they test for these kind of things? Like, nobody does. Nobody does, dude. And everybody's going to hate me for this. Like, Chris, you're telling the same thing you did back, 5 years ago. No, fuck, no way. Because a lot of instruments, they don't test for that. They test for things that are like the prevailing, fears and terrors in society right now. Do they test for stuff like I'm talking about? I don't know. Right.
I guess that was kind of my question is, how much are you really able to do? Like, I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of nice, fancy marketing about, talking about natural, and they put nice, pictures of the farm and the cow and stuff on the labels. And even I've seen sports nutrition companies do this with someone asked me about a protein brand the one day, and it was like, dude, it literally, the vibe of it was kind of embarrassing. And then you look at the ingredients, it's just the same shit everybody else uses, right? Not like shit, but it's the same exact thing. But the way it was sort of, portrayed was, man, like, I could tell you the name of this cow, I raised it and then we took care of it the entire, and it was really kind of weird, man. I'm like, I don't even know, like, really what can you do, like, at a certain point,
Yeah, dude. So I definitely don't want to dig myself my own ditch. And I'll be like as transparent as possible, but I don't like, I've always been like that musician that just told everybody how the tricks were done. And then I get buried, and like Ben knows that, dude. I don't know. I care what other people do. But it just isn't always necessarily good for business.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, I'm not asking you like go into details. It's just kind of like there's going to be I don't want to say a conflict, but there's going to be like some sort of balance there. I mean, it's kind of how things go, man.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the protein is so far removed from the cow. I don't know. I'm not trying to like justify anything, but it's so far removed that you'd imagine that a lot of that is filtered out. You'd imagine that there's like, if you're drinking raw milk from a cow that is induced into lactation, I understand there's probably a lot evident there, but you're using the protein once a day. I can't imagine that it's as horrible of a decision.
Dude. Okay. Absolutely. So yeah. So heat is used in everything.
Yes. Heat
can only destroy or denature a certain amount of things, and some things prevail or consist without that process. So this goes to like the parts per million, like does that country or state or whatever region do they have any kind of like, it can have over, parts per million. yeah, with this kind of stuff, it doesn't exist in supplements at all. So does that mean like the supplement you're taking is going to contribute more than your tap water? No, tap water is going to really fuck you up. Supplements will probably be the last on your list that you need to just like what Ben said. But we aren't talking about like one source. We're talking about multiple sources. So all you have to be, and this is not with supplements, all you have to be is wary about a lot of things outside of supplements. Can supplements have some sort of parts per million at a very low, like non-harmful dose? Yes, absolutely. Is it like the process of what they're doing to integrate like whey in its original source from the cow into the powder form going to remove it all? Maybe some. Is it going to exist in there? Absolutely. Of course it exists in there. It might be like such a small amount that doesn't do anything. Is it accumulative? Absolutely. So you just need to be very wary about how much of you're doing, like how much you're consuming of whatever it may be. So that's what we talked about at the beginning before we went into this. Like there's a lot of things that are going to contribute to this. Are supplements one? Probably not.
I mean, it's something that you can quantify. Look at Prop 65 type stuff, right? We're talking about heavy metals that if you're Prop 65 compliant, you're under a certain amount. But the problem is that you have people taking these consistently over time, multiple times, maybe a day, but at least a week, right? So you could be below the safe amount, but a lot of this stuff will over time build up in your diet or in your body, and it'll eventually be a problem. One thing that was brought up to me recently was the amount of silica used in glycerol products. I don't think I've talked about this publicly anywhere.
I was the one saying that.
You weren't the one that said that.
I was like screaming at, okay, who said that? Because I was like yelling at people about that.
I'll tell you off the air. But if you look at, I really don't want to call anyone out on this because they probably don't know that they're doing it. But if you look at a lot of products that have really high glycerol count and they're doing their best to make it not clump, the silica is like the third ingredient on the other ingredients. You know, it's like above any, like most of the actives. It's a huge dose of silica just to make sure the glycerol isn't clumping. And at that point, the WHO has a certain amount of, I forget what the metal in silica possibly is it lead? Like silica can absolutely carry a ton of heavy metals, and you could be like very quickly in a toxic dose in a week. And no one seems to be talking about this, which I think is kind of interesting because I didn't even consider it myself. So Chris, you were a smarter man than myself.
Dude, well, first of all, no way. I have a very small knowledge bank, and even people could contest that for sure. But a lot of these things that we're talking about are accumulative. They aren't acute. It's not something that happens directly. And this is with like hormone disruptors, with androgen blockers, like everything that we're doing right now. It's over a long period of time, not just a couple years for a study, maybe decades, legitimately. And we are so addicted to a lot of these things that are just like, they're in everything. So yeah, silica, guys, a lot of people don't list silica, and these like, cause we use a glycerol inside of ours. We use 2 grams inside of it. If you use more, and I can't even say that because there's no studies, but if you use silica for a lot of time, the way that they make that to be not like clumping or not being so hygroscopic is by putting a lot of silica inside of that. So your silica to like actual glycerol or glycerin ratio is probably pretty high. I'm not going to call out anybody, but if you're taking that every single day, it's going to accumulate. It's the same thing with taking Tums. Don't take too much Tums all the time because you don't want to calcify something inside your esophagus. The same thing with these different minerals, man. Dude, good thing to talk about. I love it.
Well,
I like that it brought it back to supplements. It was good.
Yeah, and I want to actually, I want to talk about something cool that I think that you do. And I think, I'm not going to say you were the first one to do it because I'm not 100% sure, but I know you were one of the early adopters of this because now I see other people doing it. But one ingredient that I really like that you have consistently used in your products in the past is aquamine. And I think aquamine is a cool one because it kind of ties into, if anybody watches your stories, it's something you incorporate into your foods, into your cooking. But it sort of made sense as I got to know you. I was like, well, shit, no wonder Chris has always put this in his products, even though it wasn't like a really popular thing, because now you're starting to see some other people use it, which is really cool because it's kind of one of those ingredients that I think, am I going to sit here and say it's going to, change people's lives? I don't know. But I know that adding it in with this product is probably a good idea. I mean, it's at worst, we're gonna like it could help. Like it could help quite a bit, but we just aren't sure yet. But I think it's a really good ingredient to start seeing in more products just because of what it does. And I know it's something that you use a lot. So I didn't know if you wanted to kind of go into it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I contribute that, not to myself, like a lot of ingredients, like these are all like suggestions. And this certain suggestion came in 2015, literally like July 2015, from Leaf Organics. We did a run with them, and my current wife, wow, that sounds bad. My wife, holy shit. Anyways, she was really friends with it, like really good friends with the guy. And she's like, hey, check out this guy. He works at a manufacturer. And Nate, I don't know your last name, but he has a great brand. And I should know this, but I don't. But at Leaf Organics, such a fucking cool guy. He mentioned, he's like, dude, why don't you put this with your amino acids? I was like, yeah, dude, that's great. It had a good story behind it. It wasn't like cost prohibitive. It looked cool on paper. I was like, done. So 2015, we started using that in our first amino acid. Tastes great. Unfortunately, they fucked up on our order. Never used them again. Nothing against you, Nate. Just, you know what I mean? And then we just stuck with it because I liked it. It tastes great. I love the story behind it. It's just really cool on paper. Like I love trace minerals. I just love like, finally people are using like pink Himalayan rock salt. Let's get into like trace minerals. You don't have to get into the only minerals that people know. What are the other like pieces of the puzzle that make your body work efficiently? So he brought that out, blew my mind. And now I'm like, dude, use it. Yeah, dude, our amino acids have 500 milligrams per serving inside of that. That's like substantial that everybody should be taking trace minerals. I'm telling you, topsoil, Ben, maybe you could like somebody, the topsoil, we have like destroyed it. And that had all the nutrients, all the teeny little trace minerals, the elements that we need to survive is gone. So you're going to need to take it just like essential amino acids. You're going to have to take some form of these trace minerals just to be healthy someday. Maybe not now, but someday.
Right, because so Aquamine, for people that don't know, right, one of the supposed benefits or hopeful benefits to it is that it helps remove the toxic metals, because we've been talking a lot about toxic metals going in your system and the cumulative effects that we might not notice, away. But then this could be a way, if you're getting that, say in your daily, routine, that could be a way to, hopefully combat that whole kind of process.
Yeah. Ben, you're going to say something.
It's always the topsoil thing has always been a reason that I I recommend multivitamins, because people talk about trace minerals or vitamins, and we talk about athletes as a whole. We actually need a lot more minerals than most people do because we sweat it out, we perform, but also vitamins we need a little more because we're pushing our bodies. And unfortunately, like you said, the topsoil, at least in America, maybe not like Bulgaria and some healthy countries, but in America, we overachieve at everything, including overusing our topsoil, and that makes all of the downstream effects in our food system just deficient in those vitamins and minerals. So take a multivitamin. In fact, there's a really good company that has a multivitamin called Inspired Nutraceuticals.
Really cool.
So you can go check them out. Yeah, they're cool. They're inspiring.
Yeah, and they have that Aquaman we were just talking about, right?
Yeah. I actually, I first learned a lot about Aquaman from Jacob Davis, the nutrition store, because I was hungover.
That's right. We did have a conversation about that.
It was one of those moments where like everything like came together. He was like, go drink some Inspired Amino. And I was like, why would I drink aminos if I'm hungover? He's like, there's Aquaman in it. And I was like, I get it. I understand it.
Dude,
right,
bro.
so he helped you get there and then helped you fix it. So basically, the nanny state hard at work for you.
And then he took me to the keg outside.
Yes, I will always take you to the keg, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we just moved forward. That's where Chris found me that day.
So did you? We're still talking about supplements. Did you guys get to try the Amino Fuego flavors?
I only said that to you, Justin. Damn it! You always do that to me.
I already talked about it.
You sent me one.
Everyone's rubbing it in tonight.
Yeah, you sent me one. I got it yesterday, and it was amazing.
Yeah. But are you really?
I hear everyone in the industry gets it before me, so it's okay.
Dude,
Are you
on
are you
spot.
really gonna make an energy drink though? Like, are you really gonna go down that road, like, and actually make like a canned energy drink?
Man, so we're
Wait,
gonna
you got a can?
Not an energy drink, but the I think the Amino Fuego I think was the idea, right?
Yeah, RTD, like RTD. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Justin, you got the powder. You didn't get a can, did you?
No,
if I did, I wouldn't even admit it right now.
No. Dude, he'd be taking out like one of my snipers that's just like out
Yeah.
all your windows.
There's a red laser on your forehead right now, Justin.
No, I was still a little bitter about not being able to try the coffee stuff, but go ahead.
Well, first with like brewed, man, and like I'm not even like exaggerating on this. My Australian guy, which we're gonna make that's in Australia, which I probably shouldn't tell anybody, but by the way, I'm gonna manufacture a lot for people in Australia. It's being made there, so when we get samples, my samples only came in like 1 or 2 sachets, which they call it over there. Obviously, like we devoured that, so that's still, it's not in like the research level because the formula is done, but the cylinders that we're making, like there's a long process to be able to make like custom cylinders to it. So that's like taking so long. Anyways, no way, I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, you know what? Done, guys. There you go, Jacob. That's what you get. I see you over there.
Wait, what?
Dude, I just pulled a Joe Biden on everybody. So
Well,
the thing with the
come on, guys.
I just closed my shaker cup and it did not close, so I completely like smashed it on the ground. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, so the RTD, you're gonna do the amino ones in RTDs. That's the idea. I started talking about 2 different things.
Okay, cool. So yes, Amino Fuego, absolutely happening in RTD form, 100%.
Ben, you got to try it. It's fucking incredible, by the way.
Okay, so the one that we're gonna do in RTD is gonna be like.
I gotta stop. It's absolutely amazing, Ben. I just want to let you know.
I hate all of you.
I tried it yesterday.
I am so late to the game with Inspired. I am so late to the game.
Do you have the pop socket?
Whoa,
you bought that one.
Hey, Justin. Actually, all of you. By the way, the pop socket is still stuck to my counter.
I saw
from 2 months ago, like to this day.
And it has been 2 months.
And it will be there December 12th. I'm not going to move it.
It's amazing.
Just to let you guys know. But anyway, continue.
Commemorize. Yeah, dude. So doing like aluminum right now. Anybody watching that's doing aluminum, you know what I'm talking about. It's extremely costly, and the amount that you need to do is super high. So we actually have a partner that's going to help us with that to get to a level to be able to distribute this on that level. And this is going to be something completely separate from Inspired, because like, honestly, there's no way I could do the amount of units right now that we need to do to get to that kind of level of distribution. So yeah, there's no way I could tell anybody about that. So yeah, aluminum, carbonated, great formula, awesome taste, like ridiculous. But going on a different level of like what everybody's already done, because dude, even like Ghost has a dope formula. Why would we do like Devastate right now?
Right.
In like energy, like there's no way you could survive. So yeah.
I think I speak for all 3 of us here, because we just so you know, we had Ghost Energy before you did. Thank you. It's flexing.
Like before we talked today, is that why you guys are so enthusiastic and sad about everything? I don't know. I'm just talking about what's Ghost Energy.
I've had 2 of them today, for the record. But I don't even remember where I was going with this. That's like a focus thing. Like if you took Devastate as a pre-workout can, I don't think there's a full dose pre-workout can out there. You could. Earlier in the show, you said that people, when they see a new Devastate come out, they're like, another Devastate. I think the only thing is that White Cut was like those kids that peaked in high school. You know, like White Cut was the shit. I don't know if Jacob and Justin had that one. Did you guys have White Cut?
No.
Oh, okay. You would have liked it. It was really good.
Yeah, I know, and I feel like you know that I didn't try it. I feel like,
but like no one is really doing like the pre-workout can thing. Like there's like America Labs is like a couple active ingredients in there, but if you could do that, I think that'd be different.
Yeah, I think the only one doing a RTD pre-workout would be like Redcon. They
Just
put
right in GNC Beyond Raw, don't they have a can?
They have
Yep.
That's for sure.
It has like 3 grams of beta alanine and like 2 grams of citrulline and arginine.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a lot different, I think, than the regular formula.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's what they could suspend in the can.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, so my question would be like, what is the life of these amino acids or content inside of water? Or is there something like that could sustain that? Because like this was the controversy of putting like amino acids back in the day. Like I remember 10 years ago, you couldn't put amino acids in water for longer than it was like 24 hours or 36 hours, literally, before it dissolved. Like there's no amino acids.
Well, you're not considering super creatine. There's special technology.
Oh, wait. Are you talking about the creatine with leucine?
Super creatine.
Oh my God.
Super
Yes.
creatine.
Yeah, it's so super, man.
So super.
Honestly, I take it. Yeah, I take it every morning and I fly to the store. Like, there's no like, I don't need my car. Screw it,
dude. I feel like your mustache is like Aladdin's carpet, and that's all you need to just.
It's literally. It makes me, Chris. It makes me so aerodynamic. I can't help it. Literally, I get out of the shower in the morning and I just look out the window. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna fly to the store right now.
Dude, I feel like you feel like you go outside and you feel wind going past you without having.
No. I don't feel wind, Chris. The wind feels
me.
The wind feels me. Yeah.
Oh my God. I've never heard that before, but I had a feeling that's where you're going with it.
Oh my God.
I cannot wait for December, guys.
Right? We almost made it 2 hours before we derailed.
Oh yeah. Man, so like encapsulate everything. Let's encapsulate everything. So
who's gonna make that joke? Someone's gonna make the micro encapsulation joke.
Right.
Yeah. So dude, encapsulated, like digestible, goes past like
we need the micro encapsulated to make it better.
Encapsulation, sure. Like let's test that.
I put my name on the line for that one already.
Yeah. Yep. So studies. Are studies going to be biased dependent on who's funding it? Absolutely. And depending on what lens that you look at that study, are you going to cherry pick from it? Absolutely. So let's you guys agree with that?
I mean,
absolutely, 100%.
We've seen it in the supplement space quite a bit. So
I mean, Chris, can you honestly tell us that every ingredient that you use in Inspired doesn't have a bad study out there on it? Like, there's no data against any of the ingredients you use?
I mean, maybe all of them. Seriously.
Seriously. Data's objective. It's never good or bad.
It cancels out ingredients that you take. We didn't stop.
It's a net positive ingredient. Okay, there's 51% positivity.
Gonna say data doesn't have opinions, so
facts over feelings.
I wish I was as low as Jacob in his chair as he is to the world right now.
Jacob puts his camera so high up, and it's awesome. I feel like we're on top of
it. Okay. All right. You know what? I'll be up here with you guys. Shit. I'll be an actual adult for once.
I'm just glad he could articulate things right now better than I can. Okay.
Honestly, I leave it at that low so I can show my bicep vein from time to time, but honestly, it's not there today, so we're just gonna keep it high.
We're just glad that we could see Andy Friselli and all of your like teenage angst.
He's staring at us
back there. I'm telling you.
Okay, I'm done.
Wait, so we'll try to get back on track before the end. So Chris, there's still, despite brand of the year awards going out left and right in September, you probably still have plans for the rest of the year, right? What can you talk to us about stuff kind of happening here? Like, you're gonna get the greens flavors hopefully, like soon for Ben.
Our end of the year consists of a 6-hour 2 layover flights to get to South Carolina, Spartanburg.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
and that's about all I care about, man.
That's it. Hey, man, I'll drink to that.
I want to be in a world where, like, man, I just look forward to seeing my friends, and I do. I really do. Like, that's what means a lot of shit to me. Supplement, dude, I love supplements. I love supplement science, but I'll be the last guy to talk about that at a fucking party. You know what I mean?
Nope,
Like,
exactly. And you know what? I appreciate you for that, Chris, because
Go ahead.
You know, well, I'm not gonna.
No.
So, an anniversary party, typically with a retail store, is all about, oh, let's set up a booth, let's have an expo, you know, let's sell stuff. But the entire point of the parties that we're throwing or trying to do in the future are just to have fun, just to bring people together, you know? And so I appreciate that. I appreciate your stance on that.
You're doing it, buddy. You're doing it. So,
Yeah.
there. Question answered. Justin Hall got so selected all the time.
That's what I was hoping for, man, because this is really just the next 3 months and 10 days. It's just a big filler episode, man. I just want to kill time until then.
Dude, I'm stoked, man. I'm glad that you guys like made us adhere or at least like stick to supplements, because that's good. I love supplements, and I love supplement science. I love the physiology, like the changes that, and I love the controversy too. I never talk about this because, dude, I get so abstract. So I appreciate you guys, because seriously, you guys are the future that's putting everybody into line. And you need
new guard.
Like, offensive, dude. You need to be like, dude, it's a Knights of the Round Table. Like, seriously, who has the fucking like goblet? Who has the fucking dagger? Let's go. You guys are the ones that are seriously paving that way for everybody else to listen to. Seriously. And I don't know if you guys know that, but I know that. I know that. Like, you guys know that? Obviously, you guys know that in your own time, right? You're in your shower, you're like, Benzo, I know that. I know that. And, like, just watching his face and shit. Come on.
I mean, we spend all day telling each other that pretty much in our group chat.
Yep.
Our group chat is brutal at times.
No, it's a nice thing to hear for sure. I know we'll get a chance to hang out in a couple days too. So this was
a couple days.
Yeah, well, Chris and I. Well, I'll see him on Friday. Just Chris and I have a thing that we do.
Yeah,
I mean,
2 weeks.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if you guys like have another thing like out of nowhere. This is going to kind of pop up that I'm not aware of. But
It'd be a shame if I popped in.
Well, when I put that up on Instagram, like I almost felt bad uploading that video.
Oh, dude, it felt so right, dude. We gotta get out there. I mean, like, maybe we should do, like, I don't want to like get in your guys' stuff, but maybe we should do like something outside of this that doesn't have anything to do but just us talking as gentlemen.
Okay, so earlier in the day in our amazing group chat, I proposed this thing where we fly to some random place and we get an Airbnb and we do like a weekend of content.
Let's do it.
I think like a year ago, Hayden Schneider, one of the owners of Alani Nutrition, did this with a couple different content creators. And they got like a fucking mansion in the middle of Colorado, and it's so cheap to do these Airbnbs. And they just made content the whole weekend. Like they fucking like snowmobiled and like hiked and did this crazy shit. I don't know how it's relevant to us, but like I think we could fucking do this as long as we don't do the hiking thing, because I'm big and I don't do cardio.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like we could just like record it and then figure out what industry we want to market it to afterwards once we see whatever the fuck we end up getting into.
Dude, or you just let it go.
That's
Jacob
what I'm saying.
said,
just
let it go.
well, Jacob said something really important this morning on his Q&A, or it might have been yesterday. I watched it this morning. Someone asked him what community he's trying to speak to, and he said, I'm not trying to speak to any community. I'm trying to create a community. And I think that we've kind of done
I didn't hear that.
So, yeah, well, listen, I watch everyone's stories.
I do too. I watch all the good stuff. Huh.
But I think it's a good point. Like, sirs, we've done a good job. Like, I think people like our antics back and forth, for lack of better.
Welcome to the community.
Yeah.
Amen.
Sorry. I just had to. I knew I would use that for some kind of video piece down the road. So
see,
I had to say
you could be wearing the Mr. Rogers outfit. Like, welcome to the community.
I will make something like that happen.
So I think that
biceps though. How did you get that? How did you get
What are you
that?
Progressive,
Chris, shut
progressive.
up.
If you
Chris,
ask Jacob where he got his biceps, he'll tell you it's progressive overload over time.
Well, all right. So Ben, that tells me you've watched the Q&A at least at some point, and
I watch it every day.
I get asked the same damn question every single week. It's like
It's progressive overload over
well,
time.
it's like
well, it's only on Tuesdays.
do you Q&A Tuesday, baby. And then there's Suggestion Saturday, which is kind of a new thing, but and it's like
Sunday.
that is my own personal thing. That's aside from TNS, but yes, I enjoy 360 Sunday. I love my 360 cam. I'm waiting to bring it to the adult stage. Oh wait, what? Anyway,
Put it on your forehead.
The same question I get asked every week, guys, is like, what workout do you do? Can you send it to me? Or is there any workout that you recommend for maximum arm gains or for the best lats? And I'm like,
go ask Jim Stepani, he'll tell you.
Oh, of course. He
has one for you.
It's optimal, right? It's optimal.
There's a study on it. Just make sure you take his BCAs.
There's a PhD somewhere down the road.
He's the only doctor here.
Yeah,
I like where this is going.
Without wait. So you're telling me he's a doctor without any accredited research currently within the past 10 years?
I don't know when his study was, but if you ever watch it, if you ever read it, get your popcorn because it's hilarious.
Huh.
It was like
Chris,
something like.
You ever hear the story about Ben Jim Stepani in a cabin in the woods? Totally true. This
is 100% true.
Before, haven't we? Yeah. We've had that conversation.
This is the Drew Peters podcast I talked about. Yeah. Do you want to hear the story?
Blow my mind. I need to hear it now.
I went to this. So GNC has this giant meeting in the middle of Ohio every year. It's called the Meeting in the Woods. It's at this. I'm 100% serious. It's at this like cabin thing in like 3 hours out of Columbus into the woods, and all of Division 1 goes. It's like 75 regional sales directors.
Yeah.
So it's like completely outside of like the retail people. Like these are like actual RSDs.
Baby sacrifice level. I get it.
Yeah, this is like some serious like lizard people type shit.
Yeah,
and
I know, dude, weird.
And so they you're allowed to like go present to these people. You basically buy them lunch and stuff, and you're able to talk to them. So the first year that we launched in the GNC, I went, and we just checked in. We flew in at like 6 fucking a.m. It was horrible, and I just want to go to my room and like lay down. And we're walking towards the hotel area of the massive cabin, and we pass a gift shop on the left. It's all glass, and it's me, Dan Margolis, and Mark Leisure, and we look to the left, and there's an extremely tattooed bald man in the gift shop, and I'm like, I think that's Jim Stepani. And this is like 3 weeks post YouTube video. You guys remember like that ridiculous video we did calling out Jim Stepani and just shitting on him? So like the fallout has already happened. Like everything's kind of like the dust was kind of settled, and like we just know that the dust is about to not settle again. And so we're like, all right, we're just gonna keep walking forward. Like we're not doing this. We're gonna go get breakfast. And Dan Margolis and I get like 20 feet, and we turn around, and Mark Glacier is gone. And we're like, fuck. So we like sprint into this gift shop, and like as soon as we get through the door, we just hear like 2 men screaming about protein quality, and like just like your products are shit, and whatever, and like they're going back and forth, and it's like some Big Bang Theory argument type stuff. It's like no one in normal mainstream culture would understand what these 2 men are saying. And I remember like Mark being like, your protein's full of saturated fat. And Jim Stepani was like, yeah, well, you're so old, you could use the saturated fat for your testosterone. And it was like the most ridiculous.
We come full circle to the testosterone thing.
Yeah, it's the most ridiculous argument that I've ever heard in my life.
So who was the winner? Like, who was the winner?
Well, we like kind of like came up behind Mark and were standing with him. We definitely looked like fucking goons. So Jim Stepani like kind of like slowed down, and we were like, all right, we're fucking out of here, bro. Like we like turn around and like walk out of here, because I thought Mark was gonna swing, because Mark's like a fucking black belt, dude. Like we're on Cobra Kai and this shit. And so we're like walking out, and like as we're like rounding the last corner, Jim Stepani screams. By the way, actually, the perfect thing to tell you about all this is that this whole time he's holding a pink shirt that just says "I Heart Ohio," and like he's like tatted like head to toe, and he's like holding this pink shirt that he's looking at buying. And we're coming around this back corner, and he like screams down this hallway. He's like, "I'm the only fucking guy here in this industry with a PhD anyway," and it was just like.
There it is.
Yep, you are, dude.
So, Chris, you're welcome. That was on the Drew Peters podcast. That was incredible.
Yeah.
So, like, wow, we're like past 2 hours. So let me ask you this: what makes a PhD person more like prominent than somebody that just like spends a lot of hours vetting their information, if you can, because all information could be
true.
It's hard to do that.
I can tell you, yeah. It's
blow my mind.
The main difference is that PhD candidates have spent that time recording information that they probably cannot regurgitate on a long-term basis onto a 20 to 30 to 40 plus page paper or dissertation and submitting that to their higher level PhD, which then submits it to something called the IRB, which is the International Review Board. And then that gets passed around and approved. So it's like a fraternity within the university system of, oh, you put your time in, you put your effort in, you put your words in, here's your effort. But I've met
Gold star.
Yeah, I mean, so, and basically my point in saying all of that is that I know personally all of my exercise science PhDs that I worked with in college, no disrespect to them, but they are exercise science PhDs. However, they hold themselves to a level in which they think they can decipher nutritional science and biological science and physiological science. And they literally have the same surface level understanding that myself, all of us, anybody on the internet who is watching this right now can decipher. But because they have the PhD behind their name, they can use that as either business leverage or, societal leverage. It's a kind of shitty construct, if we're being honest. It's almost like it's a fraternity of status. And yeah.
Finally, those biceps are speaking the truth.
Oh,
that's a real shit. Like, seriously, like, all honesty, like, everybody that obtains an insurmountable amount of knowledge that uses it for their own directive is now considered a conspiracy theorist. Are there conspiracy theorists? Yeah, there's a lot of fucking idiots out there. But you could discredit anybody with any knowledge if they don't have the credentials. So that's like the dangerous like realm that we're in. We have like a lot of people that are super educated. They don't have credentials. So now they're discredited as fools with woo science. And you're like, no, the medical journal, this is what it's saying. So this is like a field that we could penetrate into. And you have to have different like vetting systems that says like, yeah, obviously this motherfucker's like full of shit. But it doesn't mean that if you have a doctorate that you know everything that you're saying. You could be a fucking bumbling fool, and your doctorate doesn't mean shit.
Well, I mean, a doctorate literally means like a doctor of philosophy. All right, well, what philosophy are we talking about? Like what specific, are we talking about history? Are we talking about English? The philosophy of English is totally different than biomedical science. So you have no right to speak in those realms. Like, it's just not your place.
Oh.
So yeah,
for all the
I love it.
Eve's yawning. She says this is going on too long. Mike Israetel is the opposite of all of this though.
I love that man.
But if you get into this, like the smarter of the people, I don't want to insult anyone by saying this. The smartest people that I talk to in exercise science and nutrition completely denounce sports nutrition supplements. Like Mike Israetel is like, doesn't even recommend beta alanine. Yep. It's like creatine and black coffee, guys. And he's bigger than I am anyway.
So here's what happens typically.
How is he bigger? Hold on. How is he bigger?
Like width-wise, he's like 5'2", but he's
No. How is he bigger? Is the dude like on testosterone because test is natural? Is the dude on shit outside of his body like
listen? I'm on TRT, like, okay.
Yeah, like I don't know this weird line that you're like, hey, you shouldn't do that. Like, guess what? The body's perfect, but it's not perfect.
Ben,
you want to obtain something else. So this weird like fine line between like people like, hey man, don't take any substances, but I need to elevate my testosterone naturally because I'm low. Who the fuck are you? Are you out of your?
No. That's not Mike's point though. Mike's point is that like all of this stuff doesn't have enough backing.
No, what backing? Like human or?
I mean, like he supports like caffeine and creatine, which I think, if we're being honest, caffeine and creatine have the most human data to back them up. So someone asked me the other day what this, because we all say the most studied ingredient in sports nutrition is creatine. Yes, what's the second most studied ingredient? Which I thought was a really good question. It's probably caffeine.
Yeah, caffeine. Yeah, caffeine might even be first. Lots of it, but
absolutely caffeine first. 100. Okay, so what impacts you? Like, could we not have an anecdotal study that there's a lot of things, even if there's not a direct physical response, even if it's a superficial response, or some sort of like, non-ability to track like an anecdotal, what is it called? Help me out here, guys. Sugar test, what is it called?
What?
You guys help me out here. Okay, you can't help me out. Okay, well, no, placebo effect. Okay.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of things that have a placebo effect that still have an effect on our body.
Right.
Does that mean that you could test it like, and dude, this guy like crushed that, but dude, a placebo effect is real shit. So if you believe something's going to help you, it's going to help you. Totally going away from the top of the conversation like that.
Well, I mean, and there's the thing of understanding what that ingredient physiologically does for you, like on a chemical level, and then understanding that, hey, okay, these subjects in which were under study knew that this ingredient was supposed to have said effect. That's I
was going to say one thing that's, I'll just tie this in with something. Chris, whenever you send me samples of stuff, you don't ever tell me like what the formula is. And, and I think that that's a good way to do it, because especially the more formulas you use and the more ingredients you're familiar with, you're going to go into it thinking something or expecting something. And you're just going to have, some sort of bias towards what you're about to take. It's impossible not to. And you can talk your way out of, you could take some pretty crazy stuff and you can pretty much talk yourself out of it sometimes. I mean, your brain's pretty good at that. So that's one thing just I've always noticed with Chris is I was like, oh, he's not going to tell me what I'm, okay, that's cool.
Chris,
I like that.
Chris and I have talked a lot about Synergies recently, which there's no studies on Synergies. Well, outside of maybe like citrulline and arginine, and caffeine and theanine. Looking at you, Justin. There's not a lot of studies. We can say is a little better. And so two people in this industry that really talk well on these things are Chris and Joey Savage. They like, you look at some of their products, you're like, look, this doesn't really make sense. And if anything, this is underdosed compared to the studies. Like, yeah, but it fucking works though. When I took Devastation The Union, it didn't feel the way that the Supplement Facts panel looks. And I mean that in a respectful way, Chris. It is very impressive how it feels. And sometimes anecdotes kind of rule.
Yes. So, like, when could we get to this level of knowing, like, I don't know, super physical science of believing something that's going to work to actually working? Like, that'll never happen, obviously. The placebo effect will never have a real world science application. I get that. But there will never be, until people like me have like literally millions of dollars to say that, like, dude, my composition of 12 ingredients is superior to the singular, like 1-2 ingredients. Like, that's not going to happen, dude. I talk to Compound Solutions. I talk to the same like people that you're working with right now. It's not going to happen. It is so expensive, bro. Until we get pharmaceutical, like, it's not going to happen.
Let's look at like a real life example, like Morphogen's Volugen versus something like an FSU, right? Like, Let me ask Justin, you've taken FSU and you've taken Volgen. Which one gives you better pump?
I don't know.
It's I couldn't I honestly no, but you understand what I'm getting at here.
I honestly don't even know.
But you understand what I'm getting at here is that Volugen has a huge scoop, and if you looked at the supplement facts, you'd be like, definitely Volugen. But at a certain point, a lot of these products are on an even playing field because of the way that some of these things work together. I honestly couldn't tell you which one gave me a better pump because both of them give me incredible pumps. Mm-hmm. And some people watch that and they're like, Ben's just paid off by both of them, which is untrue. But the honest truth is that, like, at some point, it doesn't like synergize anymore.
Yes. Well, yeah, and there's just so many other things. I mean, there's just a lot that goes on into it. I mean, you can, if your meal, if you're getting enough hydration, you got some salt, great. We talk about carbs. If you have good heat, like when the gym I go to is, it's hot in there, and man, I mean, you can't help but get an awesome pump when it's really warm in there. So it's like, it's hard to tell sometimes. I just have never, that's why I try to tell people when they ask me, they get down to like 2 products and they just like agonize so bad over it. I'm like, you're fine. Like, you've already made it. You've skipped the hard part of getting through all the bullshit, the waste of money. I was like, just get out there and have fun with it now. Like, enjoy yourself.
What you said about food and hydration being a big factor is a big thing. Chris, you just said before, like, when do we get to the point where we trust people on their anecdotes? Yes. Only like 1% of the industry is probably even self-aware enough to understand, like, this product did this for me because I have a consistent hydration and sleep and recovery and all these things. Like, half the comments that say like, oh, I took Devastate, it didn't fucking work for me. I haven't had that comment. But if that did come up, I'd probably be like, well, you probably aren't sleeping consistently. You probably aren't recovering right. You probably aren't hydrating enough. There's a ton more to it. I think that obviously Mike Israel would laugh at me if I told him that I took an ingredient that he doesn't believe in and, it worked really well for me, because he'd be like, well, here's 6 studies that show that it didn't even work. But people in the industry that are self-aware and cognizant of how their bodies work and they're consistent, I think that a lot of us can tell when things are different.
Dude, absolutely. So with drug studies, and this is why everything can be obscured and why debates, there's no, like, even if you're wrong in a debate, you could take studies and obscure it to your level and say, listen, I don't care what the clinical doses did. That motherfucker didn't sleep 6 hours. That motherfucker didn't have this much carbohydrates in him. There's so many different ways to be able to interpret it and go at it differently. So studies, guys, I like them. I love them. But I'm living off of like anecdotal data. If I have 30 people that took this, that they don't know what's inside of it, and they said they had a great experience, guess what? I'm going to be like, hey, so-and-so, I can't like report this, obviously, legally. But I say like, so-and-so loved it. That's it. We're going to get to that realm, dude. Until you could get to a completely unbiased focus group of robots that have the same cellular structure, the same agenda of daily activity, there's no way you're ever going to say like, hey, this is superior to the next. You're just not. There's too many variables, dude. There's too much volatility in the ability to get this kind of data. Like, right, Ben? Is this what you're saying right now? Like,
absolutely. We don't know anything. We know nothing.
Well, it's just even going back to even going back to the bias thing. Like, if Chris were to send me a pre-workout, as opposed to just getting a random one or whatever, I would already be probably more excited because I'm like, hey man, I bet you this is going to be awesome. Like, no, even if I don't know the formula, but I'm probably already going to have that placebo effect in place just because. I mean, I'm just straight up. I mean, 100% honesty. Like, I would be already probably having those responses in my body that the pre-workout's trying to mimic. Just knowing that, hey, man, I'm going to get something fun to try from Chris today. So it's like, I don't know. What the hell you do with that?
Well, I think that all of us have, I mean, I don't know. I'll say for myself, the first time I take a new product, especially like if I'm helping someone like formulate something, the first time I have that product, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. This is amazing. Like, this is everything's coming through. Like, it's all coming together. I love this. And I'd be interested if Jacob's had this experience because he did enjoy the ride. The first time I do it, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. But maybe even the second time still exciting. But the time where I take it and I'm not like excited to hit the fucking gym, that product doesn't always work as well.
Mhm.
You know, like when we all took, like being completely honest here, when we all took Devastate the Union, like 8 of us took it together. We all went to the gym together. We were excited. The energy was there. It was an amazing day. We were all happy. That pre-workout wasn't going to go badly. Like, let's be really honest about that. Like, Chris, like, no matter what we took that day, we were going to have a good fucking workout no matter what. Like, that's just, it was emotional. We were happy. We were in a good place. The amount of dopamine that was going on was amazing. Right?
True.
You know, I mean, I'll be like, I didn't have the same workout when I got home and took my Devastate of the Union sample. I'm not saying that it didn't work as well, but I think a lot of the times there's so much more to it than just food. Yes.
Dude, environmental. Yes, dude. And I'll be the first company owner that's like, dude, could I have one experiment that says everybody lists like 5,000 weights, and the next one everybody lists like 250 weights or 2,500 weights? Like, dude. And even with these studies that you're like talking about right now that we're like referencing, there's not like multiple studies in the exact same setting that gets this exact outcome. Yeah. Like, there are not studies like that, dude. And that goes through like anthropology, through history, on every manner. It's very hard to say like you plug A in, you get B every time. It just does not happen. There's like a different level of what we don't understand. Maybe we do, maybe like a lot of smart people do, of this metaphysical level outside the realm of what we're like doing that impacts us. So if you have that environment and that substance, you get that. If you have that substance without that environment, you don't get that. And it happens a lot of fucking times. And dude, that's the placebo effect. It's a lot of like giving sugar water, like, hey, motherfucker, I got amphetamines in here. It's sugar water. It tastes like orange. You're like, dude, boom, triggered. Outside of that, you're not in that environment. Like, that's what we're dealing with here. So I just don't know how to like mediate and understand all this, because people either like go full right with like studies are the only truth. They go full left. We're like, no, there's a metaphysical thing outside, like the placebo effect. We don't understand how this interacts. Dude, so like what I like about you, like there's this equilibrium where I want to find the truth. What the fuck is happening? Like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could even say that about, like, you know, we could say, oh, well, that's a pre-workout kind of thing, right? Because you can psych yourself up. But I mean, placebo goes into general health too. So it's like, well, I always do kind of say, I'm like, you know, if I'm going to take a health-based product that's aiming to, you know, help with your, I don't know, your liver, your kidneys, or whatever, I would want to know dosages. I would want those dosages to be, you know, where stuff. But at the same time, I mean, like what you're talking about, if someone's like excited to take a greens product, I mean, it is proof that, I mean, if people are just in a better mood about things, I mean, those have positive health benefits anyway. So it's like, even when we get outside of pre-workouts and we start talking about health-based products, there's still that stuff that sort of creeps in there.
Mm-hmm. Empirical. So like empirical data is something that could be replicated. You take this pill, I get this experience, right. Ben does, he does. Like, so that goes to a drug level. Like seriously, like you take something that's an agonist to dopamine. Like you take a drug, you get that. But mm-hmm. what I don't see are like evidence of these other levels that are like completely like obvious to me. I just don't see that on so many different levels. I see that with drugs, and there might be like agonists where you get that, like, I don't know, somewhat of an effect or impression from that. But with these other levels, now keep in mind, like there are obvious things that do that. But what we're talking about, I just don't see that. I see like this superficial realm of formulas thrown together on absolutely zero data, other than like anecdotal evidence, which I don't think is completely like, you can't disregard that because that you've experienced that, that's good. So, and I have, but where they're coming from, like, where is that?
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, speaking of dopamine agonists, I'm just ready for December 12th.
Can I ask the most important question about this? Yep. I don't know if this is the most important, but I have a very important question. There's this beautiful man, and I need to know if he's coming to this Christmas party, because his life is just entangled with ours. Like, I've been finding, like, look at this.
I knew this.
Gorgeous man. You want to talk about biceps? This guy.
Holy crap.
like I
He
I
just
understand.
mentioned me in his
Yeah.
story.
That's
Oh,
what
you
made me
guys-
think of this.
Yeah, you guys are on my thing.
We're your background?
You're my background.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
As
All
you
right.
guys are mine.
I need to do this.
All I see is Andy Frisella right now and a lot of hats that I want to throw away. I'm telling you.
Oh man.
Listen, those hats are valuable to me. All right, they have a special
You can't
place.
have such a nice haircut and wear hats, motherfucker.
You think this is a nice haircut?
Well, I think you look nice. Is that
Listen,
bad?
man. No, dude, it's pretty bad. I mean, I appreciate the compliment, but it's not tightened up like it should be. I'll just say that.
I can definitely say the two of you definitely have better hair than me and Justin. Like
Where
you two,
is-
like when I see good hair, I think of the two of you for sure.
That's right.
Sorry, I'm caught up with Nate right now. Sorry.
That's where I was before I asked that question.
Yeah. So okay. So like the synopsis of this, I feel like we're all just trying to find this some sort of like inclusive truth, and the inclusive truth is evading because there's so much disinformation, and the information is dependent on the perspective of the individual experiencing that, which makes it anecdotal. So you have like empirical stuff, and then you have disinformation coming from more of like a emotional standpoint, which I try to not look at anything emotional. So like, dude, I'm with you, Ben. I want to fight, like you guys, I want to find the truth. I don't want to be like, hey, this does this does that, because a study says that. Listen, the study didn't put it with 20 other fucking ingredients, motherfucker. Your study's invalid, completely invalid.
Mhm.
You have no idea what your ingredients do with all those other ingredients, simultaneously trying to fight for the receptors and get that sort of mechanism to signify that they're like the important one. Like, tell me, that's impossible. We don't know that. We do not. We put everything into a juice. Like, you take all these vegetables, put that into a juice. You go to Jamba Juice every day before the gym. Guess what wins? Caffeine, stimulant. Does all the other things win? No, they fight for the receptors. Nobody could tell me right now. I don't care what doctor you fucking are. What receptors get what, at what disposition, at what sequence. Those receptors signify something is more prominent other than the other. So you have 20 ingredients. Give me 120 right now. Who could do that?
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the chat right now. Our chat has been talking about fetishes for about 30 minutes right now, just so you guys know.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I apologize. I completely missed that question, but I love it.
Oh, dude, no worries, dude.
You mentioned, I heard, competing for absorption, right? This is a discussion that you and I have been having for about like 2 months straight, like within our conversations.
Yes.
And your thought process, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but your thing that you keep on bringing up is glutamine being a huge amino acid and competing for uptake, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So let me ask you, all right? Because this is an interesting concept. And I was talking to someone about this because I was very interested in this. So I want to know if anyone else knew anything about this. If glutamine competes with other amino acids for uptake, why don't we have that? Or I don't know. Do we have that problem when you eat normal proteins and they get broken down into amino acids and we absorb them?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's some sort of...
Has anyone checked stool samples for amino acids being not absorbed?
Well, like, first of all, like you're talking about like a whole source, where your body gets a whole source and then individualized amino acids. I think there's a profound difference.
Okay. So
I think, dude, I think there's a bioidentical level of nature that your body's able to comprehend and assimilate that is fundamentally different, even if you make it in a lab for it to digest, dude. I just do. I don't know. That's a hippie side of me.
So I'm just going to start taking EAAs and sending out stool samples for testing. I want to know.
Well, like, do it at the exact like level of what's in, I don't know, whey protein. Whatnot.
Yeah. Like,
So
yeah, we could do a couple different EAAs. We could do like a Xena from Glaxon does like muscle, like the same makeup as muscle. We could do like an inspired amino.
And this
and
is
we could
where
use
I contradict that. Like, this is what I contradict that, dude.
We could use some steak and some whey protein as controls, maybe.
I think steak. I think your body, even though like obviously these whole food proteins are more difficult to break down, and these free proteins or free amino acids should somehow be easier to assimilate, even in peptide form when they're like even more breaking down. I don't know. I need to see data. I need to see like a muscle biopsy from whole food protein, from Galaxon, and then from ours, and then see the amino acid profile and a muscle biopsy. Like, fuck, I'll fund that. Let's go. Seriously, go. Like, there's no way to debate this unless you ingest this in a test group and then get a muscle biopsy to see what the fuck is going on here, dude. There's a bunch of like jargon that could be said. Hey, I know the puzzle pieces. Like, dude, I get your jargon. I get that. I get their jargon. I know the jargon. And I like, you could be as smart as the smartest person in the world, bro. But unless it's transferable into the fucking gym and recovery, you don't know fucking shit.
Well, I think that December 12th, we're going to have to sit down and talk about finding a university to host this study. Inspired.
We got Furman 30 minutes away. That's the biggest R1 school in the Southeast.
And Inspired can fund it.
Money to fund it. No. Fuck
and
no. I'll fund Inspired. Every other motherfucker in this party gonna fund themselves.
We're gonna fund the bill at the Irish bar.
It's all about it's funding the connections. We don't even have
we go.
You just gotta go sweet talk some people.
Dude, can we just ride that mustache to glory, Jacob? I'm tired of you.
Listen, man. No. Listen, Chris. We don't have to ride it to glory. We ride it to research. All right.
Yeah.
We'll make some connections. Just get them a few hundred tequila shots like we had back in July, and everybody's gonna be willing.
Well, I have to carry on with my night, but can we get one last drink?
Yeah.
Dude,
It's been
fun,
guys. Let me pour a little bit more.
Can we just, Chris? Thank you so much for being on tonight.
Chris, you are the best, dude.
Yeah, no offense to anybody. Like, there's a lot of people smarter than me. There's a lot of people not smarter than me too, though. Let's be real. I love you guys.
Best line ever. Love you, man.
Dude, love you guys. Give me more.
All right. I'm killing this stream.